Sit back and relax while you listen to Train Kickers podcast. I'm Dave, and with my co-host Dan and some guests we have tonight, we plan to go over the world of miniature wargaming. On this episode, we're going to go over Infinity the Game by Corvus Belli and discuss some things that would be of interest to new players or people who are potentially interested in getting into the game. Now, on to the show. So, how are you doing on this Monday night, Dan?
Excellent. Just as always, surviving the week until vacation, whatever it takes, either Thanksgiving or Christmas, and just trying to make it by.
It's a short week though, so that helps. Do you have school Wednesday?
I have a half day because you got to get that little bit of torture in you before you celebrate the Thanksgiving break.
They started giving us off Wednesdays because the students wouldn't come and half the faculty wouldn't show up either. So, me included. So they finally started giving this off. So we only have to do 2 days, which is nice.
Oh, no one's going to show up. I think my average attendance for that day is going to be maybe 5 kids in a classroom, but we have to show up.
That sounds like movie day and paint some miniatures. Or assemble your Infinity, which is tonight's topic.
Yes.
All right, so why don't we bring our guests in that we have? So we have 3 guests with us tonight. All people who are, so Dan and I have some Infinity. We've played in the past, but these are people who are better versed and could actually speak to this a lot more. So there'll be a particular interest to anyone who's listening who might want to get into the game, but also to us, so we learn a little bit more about what's been going on. So, why don't we have you guys, say hello. You can say a little bit, about yourself if you want to give a little bit of your background so people maybe have an idea of, your sort of basic gaming history or anything like that. So why don't we start with you, Dexter?
All right, yeah, no problem. All right, so I'm Dexter. On Discord and also ITS, I'm known as Dexter's Lab. I've been playing the game for about 7 years. I'm also a Warcore for about 5 years. Basically, that's the equivalent to what like a Vanguard, press ganger, or pundit would be. And that's about it right there.
All right. So we'll go down the list I have here to Ulysses. Am I pronouncing it right then?
Ulysses, but yeah, it's
Ulysses.
A lot of S's. Yep.
That's right. I was listening to Dexter's pronunciation. I think was my problem.
Yeah, I think he does it on purpose. I'm Ulysses.
It just sounds cooler.
Yeah. For sure. Extras. So I've been playing wargaming for a while. I've been playing Infinity as my main game for about 3 years, since N3. As a wargamer, I've spent pretty much my whole life. My brother got me into wargaming very young with a pack of Gene Stealers, and I've been hooked, kind of bouncing around for different game systems since. So I've settled on Infinity as my game of choice. And yeah, I've really kind of invested myself into it, and I find it a really rewarding and fun gaming experience.
Very nice. Because I know from our pre-show conversation a bit, it seems like it's that and BattleTech related things for you currently.
Correct. I've kind of, that sci-fi itch has really scratched between those two, but, big robots in different scale. And then I always feel like it's good. It's like, caramel and salt. It just works really well because they're so dichotomous. So I think that's what I like in my gaming habits, something different from the other one. So
refreshing.
Yeah.
All right, and that actually was chiming by our last co-host for tonight. So Keenan, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
My name's Keenan. I've been playing Infinity on and off since N2. I started in N2. I actually bought models in N1, never did anything with them. And then actually played my first game in N2, played 2 games in N2 right at the tail end, and then pretty much from N3 on. I got started into mini wargaming through a buddy of mine introducing me to Mech Warrior, the computer games, and then me finding this old WizKids clicky tech Mech Warrior game, which then led me to classic BattleTech, and the poverty ensued from there. From there, it went 40K, and then I got a job and went over to.
It's kind of funny. I actually was trying to get into the clicky tech at one point. And
it was great. It was
I-
great.
No, the problem was is that it was just like Magic. Everything's so freaking expensive when you're on like a high school when you just make money on high school, whatever, you know.
Yeah, no, it's
Right.
true. So I made the rational choice and went from that to 40K because that's much cheaper of a collection.
I
I
don't
mean,
believe that.
No, that's a lie. But yeah, that's how I ended up finally in Infinity. Was my pocketbook ran out and I
So,
found something that scratched the itch.
so I'm going to take I guess, a host-based point of privilege here for a moment. What's Clicky Tech? I know nothing of this.
Oh my
I
God,
didn't
yes.
start
Oh,
wargaming
man.
in any way until like 10 years
Yes.
ago. I've only been,
So
or maybe 15 now. So I don't know. What is this?
so it's literally
Yes.
BattleTech,
Okay.
but HeroClix.
Yes.
Yes.
All the stats
Okay.
were
And
on the
the
base.
yep.
It
Mhm.
was
The mechs were
there was a
pre-painted.
40-page rule book. It wasn't very intense, but it was me and one
You
of my
bought
buddies from school, and we just sit down opposite each other and play it for 3 hours until one of us ended up getting mad enough at the other one that we decided we needed to take a break.
I mean, you had booster boxes, so you didn't even know what mechs you had. So you would buy like these booster boxes that would contain a mech, a tank, and some infantry. And you would trade them. Like sometimes you get an aggro mech, which is literally just a construction mech with a buzzsaw, or you'd get an atlas. So it was actually a lot of fun. And weird flex, I actually still have the Aurora dropship from
Oh
WizKids.
my, that's
Oh,
It's
man.
still
amazing.
in one piece. The doors are not broken, and I've been itching to break it out because we play BattleTech, but I don't want to move it in the off chance it breaks.
Well, I can dig out all my my clicky tech mechs I still have somewhere if you ever want to get a game in.
Don't tempt me, Satan. Get out of here.
Okay. That the more I learn about more games and stuff like that as time has gone on, I have to say I'm actually probably glad I didn't get into wargaming until later when I actually had money. Because had I started any of this stuff in like high school or early college career, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you on that one. And I think I probably started latest out of all 5 of us, actually.
When did I
Yeah,
start?
5 of us.
I was not just about grad school ish, so like 15 years ago, actually thinking about it. But that was like D&D to start, and then I think I bought miniatures shortly thereafter, so maybe 15 years. But all right.
Gotta get him young. Gotta get him young like me. That's how you support
Get
the
in young,
industry.
stay broke for life.
Yep, pretty much.
That's how
I
it works,
started.
right?
Mini gamers.
Oh God, I started when I was like 12 when Jersey
Yeah.
Gardens had a Games Workshop.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
I remember
man.
Yeah, I
Oh
was
man.
around that
Yeah.
age.
I guess the good or the bad of growing up in the middle of nowhere, there was nothing like that. There was 2 restaurants within, a 30-mile radius and stuff like that. So you didn't see any sort of hobby store or anything like that. All right. We'll lead a little bit into the news. Since this is Infinity focused, just want to mention a little bit, since we normally do a reasonable amount of GW stuff, just mention a few of their releases or pre-order stuff they have coming out, but we'll go into more detail next week. So for Song of Ice and for Age of Sigmar, wrong game. I was talking to one of my other chats earlier. For Age of Sigmar, nothing currently. They've actually been very quiet for a while, but they've mentioned what the pre-orders for the future are going to be are for Sigmar. So they're finally coming out with dragons. They have actually changed their points and FAQ'd them before they've even released, because they've been on the boat waiting for so long. They're first talked about since September. But I think Dan and I will discuss more of them next week, because I do want to talk about those 2 giant dragon boys.
Yes, 100%.
And their dopey fucking faces.
The bodies look great. The bodies are great.
Yeah,
The faces are awful.
The faces are way too
Bodies are
long.
awful. Yeah,
Weirdly
no, they're
humanoid,
dopey.
and I don't like that. 40K wise, reasonably quiet as well. They're doing some made to order chaplains in case you don't happen to have enough of those. Dungeon Bowl is actually supposed to be going on pre-order / releasing in a few weeks. There's some other stuff for Necromunda, but we can discuss that later as well. Those are the sort of big things for some of the more prominent games. But we'll actually, honestly, for the first time, we'll go into some of the stuff that is coming out for Infinity. So we can do it either way. So we put down they have some new releases coming out. They also have some coming soon, or things that have released. They also have some coming soon. So I put down if people have anything in particular of them they think is of interest.
Wizard of Mendoza. That's all that matters. That's all.
It's
That's all
actually
I
kind
need
of
to
funny. I mean, like Ulysses was actually talking about this at the last one we were doing, where
Oh,
we kind of like you kind of like shit talked it a little bit, not too much.
oh,
you know?
absolutely.
Who,
Absolutely.
Mendoza?
Yeah,
I
Dare
Mendoza.
you?
I
Why
How
think
did
dare
you
you?
shit talk Mendoza? Mendoza's great.
because he's a little expensive for his points cost. I would say that it's a generous criticism, but that's my personal style. I think that like with the new pre-orders that are coming out, the two that come really strike to mind is the Zon's remote pack. So Infinity is a game where
Yes.
this transition from right now is like exactly at that nexus of when Infinity is transitioning from a purely metal unit set of models, which is like beautiful and gorgeous, and they're well known. If you look through their gallery, it's like you're gonna find something you like. But now they're moving it over to this like this Stoyocast. I forgot the exact wording.
Cast or something.
Theocast?
Yeah,
Yeah, they call
yeah,
it like
and,
thermal, like something. I don't remember the name.
yeah, and it's
It's like
really
a thermo injected resin almost, right?
yeah, and like it's
That's weird.
supposed to be. I've had my hands on a few models. I haven't actually built one yet. But I think that this is like an interesting direction because for a brand that is based like to me almost is a premium metal brand for their miniatures, how they design and how you the consumer build them is really interesting. So them being moving into this new medium is like, they roll with the punches as a company pretty well. So I think getting your hands on one of those remotes and building with them is a really good idea to see kind of how strong they are on that transition, which I think they're probably going to do okay. And also kind of like what to expect from the future. So I think that like if you want to get these larger models, they seem more convertible. Something to check out if building miniatures is a passion of yours in that sense of like models and materials and stuff.
One thing to note on that, though, is you should do a wee bit of research beforehand because they don't quite react the way standard harder plastics react.
Oh,
Yeah,
they
what
like
terms are you talking about?
Like as far as sanding and gluing.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, you have to just. I mean, I don't think it's like egregious, but you just have to do a little bit of different prep than you would if you were working on GW plastics.
it does allow them to get out some of these. So Infinity, and I guess obviously going later on, but why this is a good few months of releases, November and December, is because they're coming out with the Polaris Bear team, which is like, first of all,
Thank
a
you.
werebear.
Oh,
Like
my
who
God.
doesn't love that?
Yeah.
I already. Oh man, I'm having a hard time wondering if I'm just gonna yell at either one of you guys to like make me a really big chain rifle so I can just buy 2 boxes and just cut that boarding shotgun off.
Yeah, because
How
You know?
dare you? How dare you? Keep
I
that
can
hammer.
I can throw one. I can throw
Not
one
the
on the
I said the boarding shotgun,
Yeah.
not the
He's talking
hammer.
about the gun. The hammer. You got to keep the
Oh.
hammer.
It
That's a
looks-
necessity.
it's like perfectly modeled to like put like a Vostroika like gulag flag revolutionary.
Exactly, that too. Just
Like,
chop
there's
the
a lot
hammer
of
off,
really
put the
cool
flag on. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that like this is a very interesting month, like within the company and its production, but also like they're coming out with these remotes, which if you play the game, a pack of remotes is usually a must for almost any faction you're playing. So that's kind of a key one to come out, and also everybody's been waiting for these big Barapods to come out and finally get their hands on them. So I'm excited.
Now, when I look at that box, I'm looking at composition because I didn't realize they started doing their thermoplastics yet. I know they had talked about it, but I wasn't aware they actually had started. I noticed on that particular pack, it says some of the miniatures in this product are made of thermoplastic. Is it the bear?
It's the bear. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because what they're basically doing is anything that's on 25 mil, like units specifically, they're trying to keep those as metals. It's
now.
mainly for now, but from my understanding, that's what they want to keep it as. Remote like bots and anything bigger, they're going to do in Siocast, and it's mainly because they don't want to be tied down to the price of metal, and because if they were to continue on, those boxes would actually be a lot more expensive than what it would be right now.
So that sounds like from at least from what you've heard, that their hope is to keep the small things in metal even going forward.
That's what my understanding is. I haven't looked into it too much.
Yeah, and all subject to change if the price of metal really starts getting even higher than it already has been.
Yeah, but to be honest, the bigger stuff I actually don't mind being in plastic. In my opinion, the audience is split into three different ways: the ones that like it, the ones that don't like it, which is probably a little bit bigger than the ones that don't that do like it, and then the ones that just don't care, which is me. For me, for instance, I use a magnetic case. When I went to Rumble and you're on a plane, I must have freaked out every time we made a landing, because all I remembered hearing was clunk, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And then when I went to go check it, it was just strong. The polarity of the magnets were just strong enough that it held everything together.
Nice.
But at least the plastics, I don't have to worry so much.
Plastic doesn't explode when it tips over.
Yeah.
I think that this is an interesting setup because when GW went to Finecast, that was I don't right, exactly. There's nothing else to add to that sentence. Whereas GW's models are designed kind of very, very different from Infinity models. The older school Infinity stuff is almost Malifaux level construction and disregard for the builder. And then I think
disregard for all human decency.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do
remember the
think
pig?
that yeah, you're here's a spider and it's 17 pieces, and you're it only has 8 legs.
So oh my god, so Rich actually put together the not the tigers, the other combined beastie things.
Oh,
Can't
the
remember the name.
Praetas.
Yeah,
and
the Praetas.
Yeah.
And he was just complaining how while they're just drying, the face starts falling off, the little space wiener
God.
falls off. It was like, Jesus, dude, just hit it with zip kicker and end it there.
But it seems like they've done a really good job of transferring, and that's why I'm if I were to go into another space game, I would probably look at, in this scale, I would probably also be looking at Infinity models, because I do believe that their quality of miniature, particularly the recent generation over the past, let's say 3 to 5 years, have been pretty great. And so this medium transport, I'm willing to deal with whatever kind of a medium does. The medium kind of issues are, and kind of work through that. I'll destroy a remote or something every once in a while. But the truth is, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's more shocking that it's not heavy, considering Infinity, almost every model you have has that old school 90s weight to them. So it being a plastic model makes it feel it triggers that eBay resin kind of knockoff build in my head immediately when you touch something and it's doesn't have the same mass. But I'm really excited because it looks like that they're going to have the opportunity to maintain their clarity of design, which I think is what is an identifying factor of Corvus Belli CB. So I think as long as they can maintain that, I'm willing to work with the material costs as long as it supports the growth of the game. So that's kind of where I'm at. This is just an interesting month because that is the big question to ask, about what you're buying.
As far
And the
as
models
I
so
know,
far I've seen in person have been beautiful.
Yeah.
They look almost the same as a metal model to me.
Isn't it supposed to be the same molds and all? I thought that was actually one of the reasons they went to the particular thermoplastic and all, is because they can reuse what they already had. They didn't have to redo it all.
It's a similar method. I don't think it's exactly the same as the spin cast method, but it's very similar.
Okay.
They've had
But
to
I'm
cut
not-
a few
I'm not
pieces
really sure.
here. There's
Yeah.
a head of one thing that's so the most recent big bad remote that came out, its head was a separate part on the metal, and then in this new thermoplastic, it's actually attached to the body. But I don't think that's something you're going to notice, because you're almost never going to, everybody who gets these new models is not going to have the ability to compare between metal and thermoplastic. So
Of course.
that you're not going to, you're in the end not going to worry about it. You're just going to be like, why does he have one jetpack here and then the other one I have to glue on? That's just part of design, model, and process. Anyway.
Any other particular things that are either have just come out or that are coming out that people find particularly interesting? I know, at least as someone who still has to put together all of this O12 stuff, anytime you get a Pravati is very useful. I find, at least.
Oh yeah, the new and that. Did you say a Parvati?
You did say per body.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I like the model. It's a nice looking model. The tournament exclusive one was nice, but sometimes they end up their exclusive model ends up blowing their general release one out of the water. But this one, I think they're pretty even. They're both pretty nice models.
I mean, you can't lie. You're still gonna buy it anyway.
No, I'm actually not this time.
This time.
This time I'm not.
No, guys, just for reference, he's getting married. That's why.
Well,
Listen.
congratulations.
Maybe
I put an Xbox on my
Congratulations.
wedding registry, so you just put an Xbox on your wedding registry, like I did. No one gets
yes.
it. No one gets
Yes.
it for you, but it's hella fun.
Not to be
Yeah.
long-winded on the other releases coming out, but in terms of Corvus Belli, they're also doing something unique, which is they are releasing these like huge $300 army packs, which I don't know if they've done anything to that price point. I'm looking
I
at
don't
the
think so.
Pan-Oceania one right
What
now.
site are you on?
I'm on
Wait,
the
where is this?
The actual
They're
store.
coming soon.
Okay.
yeah.
If you
it
look
looks
on their
like-
coming soon, it's some of
Oh.
the end things they have there.
I mean,
Yeah,
so-
available the 16th of December. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold
Um,
It's
but
just in time for Christmas.
yeah,
No.
just in time for me to. Damn it!
Well, I think they're also doing some Black Friday deals specifically with those.
yeah,
They are.
$300 is a lot in Infinity dollars. I would say, like, if somebody were to ask me how much is your initial investment into the game, if somebody said, "Well, I'm expecting to spend $300," I would assume they're building out like an entire faction, at least 2 armies. That just, to me, I mean, Infinity is a game where you get some stuff and then you play, and then a guy's like, this should be an HMG, and then you go and buy that, and then so it does eventually become that amount. But as an initial investment, which is what this seems sold to, you'll have a lot of options here. It's more than one army list worth of models.
yeah.
There's a lot of toys here, but I don't know if they necessarily gel. It's a lot of like, what's the recent new stuff? Like the Kunai Ninja is in there. Like that army
no one's
doesn't
gonna-
use
No
that
one uses it.
miniature
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Not that it's not available. It's just
Or
it's
that
not.
it's not even a bad option in
Mhm.
some sectorials. That
Yeah,
can take it.
I mean, there's like a doctor and a machine. So basically, to kind of translate it down to those who don't play Infinity, GW gets a lot of criticism for their like army boxes, and then around this time they kind of give you a little bit of a deal. I would say that this feels a lot more of their normal army boxes, where you're like, I want this and I want this, and that's a model that I can't buy as an individual. Like there's like the Nisei sniper and like. There's a few
Swiss
other
Guard.
things. Yeah, the Swiss Guard and a few other things, and like their new cutter and their new robots. But like all of that stuff, like I'm sure monetarily it's a deal. But truth is, if somebody was like, I want to get into Pano, what if I buy this? I would say you could probably do better by taking that money and buying individual sections depending on what list you want to play. You'll end up wanting to invest more money to kind of round out the edges of whatever you're getting here.
Yeah.
So
It's
least-
about 12 euros a model, if I did the quick math right.
which is not bad, but remember, one of those is like a Winter 4 orc and like some Fusiliers, and there's like a Kamau hacker.
There's a
None of
tag,
these
there's
work
a tag
the
in
same-
there too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah, there's
cutter,
tag.
which is awesome, but like, it's going to be hard to make this into a viable kind of full strength list. Like as a starter army, it'll be fun.
I mean, the thing is that you also have to remember, and it's on the title itself. This is mainly for Code 1.
Yeah.
So
crap.
yeah,
Sorry.
like this is more towards those that beginner style. Like it's not meant to be like, oh yeah, if I buy this box, I'll be good to go.
That said, to counter your point, Dexter,
Mm-hmm.
the Yujing collection pack are all very viable choices.
Oh yeah,
I
no,
think
I'm not
that-
It's like a
saying.
full white banner army plus
Yeah.
six.
No,
Like
I'm not
like
saying.
that that one I
But
think is the winner out of the two. If you're gonna start Yujing, get the pack. If you're gonna start Pano, maybe piecemeal it.
yeah, but here's the problem though. Like, if you hang out in the forums, which I don't, Eugene's bad.
Well, yeah, that's why none of us do.
There's like a meme about how like the most to translate that. There's like a meme about how like the most up strength kind of like resource used list, which is Yu Ching. They have a lot of really good profiles and models and miniatures and options. Like you very much have a smorgasbord of opportunity. And then the meme is that Yu Ching is bad because of whatever. Like my guess is that they don't know how to play the list as well or use these tools
Well,
to their
there's that.
advantage.
There was
But-
that, and also the fact that like every other faction when N4 came out, Eugene, it just seemed like it just got like a slap in the hand, and that was it. Everyone else got like the big hit, and in terms of buffs and whatnot.
Yeah. The Varangian Guard is cool. That's a cool little piece for some of these like other kind of offshoot armies. It's pretty integral to any list it's in. Most people who can take a Varangian Guard will want the option, including like the O12. It's a good piece for that army. So
Yeah.
that's kind of
Out of curiosity, between the both of you guys, and maybe also Dan and Dave, those scenic bases, would that be something that you'd be picking up? I mean, the 25s, and I think yeah, only the 25s came out first.
So
40s.
ironically, and this is where I'm probably gonna get stabbed over the mic. I kind of like those bases for my custodies.
Nah, do it.
cool.
Yeah, because my
Yeah,
custodies have
they
the
look great.
they have
That-
the whatchamacallit, the sector imperialist bases, and I'm looking at these bases right now, and the one, I guess what it's called, the Alpha series.
Yeah,
Alpha
those are
series.
they're both the
Oh,
Alpha
yeah.
series.
That's really sector imperialist, like with the grates and the wires and stuff. And I definitely probably pick those
You-
up for my
yeah.
custodies.
Maplewood has some of them,
No,
the,
only the
the
25s.
25s in stock.
Oh.
Dan.
Oh, well,
We have a
custodies
lot.
we only know 40 millimeter and higher, so we're
Yeah.
thick.
So
That's why I play military
it'll-
orders.
it'll go along very well with your nameplates.
Oh, fancy.
Oh man. Yeah.
I do like the
Another-
bases though. I think they're nice. Is this the first time they've actually tried to get into bases themselves?
like
Uh,
this, yes.
Like this, yeah, yep. And these are also in the Siocast, also.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
They're a little-
think it's a
they're
very
little
good look.
Pricey
Yeah.
bases, and my only complaint is there's not as much variety with them. Like I think in the pack of 10, it's 5 and 5 that are identical. But when you're standing 4 feet above a table, it's not super noticeable. You know what I mean?
I'm actually gonna disagree with you on that, because wait, how many does it come with? 4? Does the 40 mil
Four.
come with 4?
For the 40
So-
mils, it's 4. Yeah.
To give you an idea, and this is this is me slowly crying myself to sleep. When I was looking at resin bases for 40 mil custodies, one resin base is around $2.50 to $3, and that's for a 40 mil. So 4 bases like this would easily run you $12 or €12, I guess, if you want. It would run you €12.
So that's
the
comparable.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's 10 is actually a little cheaper. It's not GW cheap. GW, I find, has been like, because they sell those what is it, like 20 40 mil bases for like $50, and then you also get the 60 mil. So you won't get a better deal than that. But if you want something specialized in this, I'd actually pick this up other than the resin bases, because resin bases get super expensive very
Well,
quickly.
We're kind of spoiled in Infinity
Mhm.
because there are a variety of scenic base makers and like officially licensed ones from Corvus. So like we're kind of it's interesting to me that they put them out when there's already so many other manufacturers out there.
Yeah,
do,
I
like, a
mean,
really nice job.
Yeah, I was really wondering about this, to be honest, but
I don't think it's a direction the company needs to go. I think it's cool that they offer it. To be honest, like I know I don't know if I can say I buy from like Death Ray Designs. And I think that like I look at their site and I'm like, even just now they have 14 options of a mix of 50, 40, and 25 mil. So like I've used them. I found that in bulk they work that way. If I was going to go down the GW route for a army, they are also probably somebody I would do. I find that they're like reasonable quality. They are limited in the design because it's acrylic, so it's like layered product. So you have to be aware of that. It's not like this like smooth, even like the what they offer with this and like resin bases is like a pipe can actually exist in it, whereas with this it's a lot more like textured shapes and like panels, kind of stuff like that. So there's mosaic, cool things that you can find that I think are creative. It's true, if you want to add like a pipe or like something, you'll have to do the guitar wire route and do something along those lines.
Yeah.
But the thing is that like if you're not in love with these, there is something like this that you can also find from other retailers, that them just being one of them. So I think I agree with Keenan that we are spoiled in this game for that option. So it is interesting that the company is like spending some time doing that. But I also think that like maybe this is an option that they have now, that they have the thermoplastic. And you know what? If it means that they're expanding their range, then all to them and they can do some cool stuff. I would love to see what they envision as combine army ground terrain. So that would be something I would be excited to see what their vision is. Or even like JSA stuff, something like that. They could really do some really interesting and unique stuff, especially if it's
I think we have enough Japanese themed stuff in this game that we
I
don't
would
need more
agree,
terrain.
but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that like
Never
You know,
enough.
Shinto shrines and stuff like that, a little bit of more organic style.
oh, so you're not talking about like another noodle hut.
I want
No, please
I want
blow them
yes.
all
more
up.
More
rooftop
noodle
bases.
huts.
I
More
want
noodle
to go
huts.
to roof bases.
Oh man! All right, so
Yes, the Kyoto roof. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna wrap this one up just on the one more thing. Like I think the other release that I'm somewhat not gonna be having fun with when it does come out are those taiga creatures.
Now, why is that?
I mean, they're amazing in my opinion. I like the way they look, but the thing is
Okay.
that to me, on the table itself, I think they're just gonna be annoying as hell to deal with because they're like little 5-point buggers. That
Embrace
just run
the meta, Dexter. Embrace the meta
Oh, you don't go against the meta also,
all the time.
but you're a Druze player, so you know that's always
Yeah.
against the meta.
Yeah. That's
So
cool though. They're pretty. They're
Yeah,
pretty.
I
It's looking
feel like
models
we've
and
kind of
whatnot.
gotten ahead of ourselves because we've gone into all the meta, but people don't necessarily know what the game's about.
yeah.
I'll talk about that.
Yeah,
We'll talk about it.
that's
Yeah.
I will say that I did look up the Death Ray design, the bases, and I'll put that in the episode notes when I release it and all. But no, I think they do actually have some very nice looking bases, and I think Infinity is also helped by the fact it tends to be a smaller model count, so the concerns of the base on this model is the same base on this model or that overlap isn't so much of a concern. Especially if you're potentially maybe a little bit particular with who you put on what base, knowing maybe either types of lists that you might run or anything like that. But
Well, the
go
which
ahead.
just always has been you only need 10 models.
Yes,
It's it's a lie. It's a bold-faced
Whoa,
lie.
whoa, whoa, whoa! You can play with more than 10 models.
Up to
What?
15 on
Should
the
be.
list.
You
not
should
with what
be,
you do,
I
Dan.
don't.
Not with what
I don't
you do.
understand. How do you what? How
I
does
can't
Jay
turn
Joe
that many
have
knights
more
in.
I mean, I play Invincible Army, so you know, 10 models is enough for me.
That is a 15 model count army. I took it to a championship.
Yeah, I know you did. I'm just too lazy to go that high.
I know.
All right, so I think that gives us a good spot to go into our main segment and actually discuss this game in a little bit more detail. So we'll see exactly how far down the rabbit hole we go with any of this and any way we need to break it out. But essentially I figured and one of you three can decide who amongst yourself wants to do this. But what's this sort of elevator pitch, you know? So for anyone's not familiar, elevator pitch essentially is usually the idea of like a 60-second, you know, you're saying it to someone because you're trying to pique their interest suddenly. So what's the sort of elevator pitch for this game? Why should someone care?
It's a futuristic sci-fi skirmish game where you only need 10 models. Only need 10 models, and there's no downtime. You're never waiting for your opponent. I mean, you may be, just because it's your opponent, but if that's the case, it's waiting for them to make a decision. It's not waiting for them to finish their turn, because there's always interaction between you and your opponent, and I use that term loosely because it's really more of a cooperative game, even in a tournament setting.
Yeah. So
Then
my favorite my favorite analogy is, say for instance you're a sniper and you see a guy walking by. If it's any other game, you're just basically just going to stare at the person as he walks by. In Infinity, you're basically, I would always ask the person, if you were a sniper and you actually see a guy just walk right by, what would you do? And the guy would always respond, probably just shoot the guy. And that's literally how Infinity works. It's always your turn, even though, as Keenan says, like, the opponent might be still making a decision. But whenever a model can see another model, they have a reaction.
I would say my elevator pitch for Infinity. I think those are two good answers. I would say my elevator pitch for Infinity has more to do with it's very, 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 very crunchy. There's very little downtime. Your decisions matter. And as much as I like to harp on it, your play style can be expressed through the profiles and the miniatures you take and the way you want to build it. So there are a lot of ways, when you get down to the minutia of the game, there's a lot of times where great players will have a discussion about a single unit, and one player will find it very valuable and another will not. And that's not because of the strength of its balance in the game. It's because one player doesn't operate or interact with the game or observe their way of play in that way, and the other one does. And there are opportunities to really take advantage of those little nooks and crannies.
Yeah, that's actually kind of true, because I remember we were talking about this one time, and the guy actually made a point of, we could give you, quote unquote, the list. I could tell you exactly what to do with that list. Ulysses will play it one way. Dave will play it differently. Keenan will play it differently. Dan will play it differently. It's never the same with the same person, with everybody. Unlike in other games.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not only just the list you're dealing with, the person's play style is involved, and also the terrain. The terrain in this game is very three-dimensional. It is not like, flat, or like, the highest will go is like a second level. And there's other things that you have to consider, like outside occurrences, like hidden deployments and all that.
Most games operate on a
I go, you go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, or in terms of the terrain, that's actually a very good point. Most games operate on a obscuring versus like concealment kind of terrain mentality, where to kind of have that discussion of a proper 40K board or a BattleTech board or kind of what have you, you're only really working on that one dimension. And in addition, it's really, do you have cover, or is this completely covering you? And Infinity allows for a lot more gradation between that, not in terms of whether or not you have cover and can be seen or not, but in much more of the ability for little elements of terrain. So in a trash can or a street bench in Infinity is a lot more impactful, and its positioning in the game, because of its distance between corners and a few other details like that. And that minutia is a way to kind of grind out those extra points of value and have it be impactful. And in addition, it is, like Dexter said, very, very vertical. You have to start kind of expanding your mind in terms of like, I'm going to move my guy up because it lets me see over this. And then in addition, I can see this line, and that covers X amount of the board that I couldn't normally see if this was just a kind of two-dimensional or two-dimensional kind of line of sight game. So it's a lot more interesting that way. So those are like some details. Plus, rolling like a handful of D20s is a very different experience to rolling rolling 5 D20s and kind of managing that risk analysis for people who like to really crunch numbers and work on probability and opportunity is very different from the D6 system, and kind of like a base 3 kind of skill set system of manipulation of mods and stuff like that to the dice roll. It's also interesting when you start breaking down into it and you start realizing, what is my best decision here? That allows for a lot more granularity, which is interesting. So those are some details of why I think Infinity is deep, complex, and also allows for a different game experience. It's just those elements that we've kind of touched on.
I think that's something I've always liked about it. I haven't always been actively playing it. Just I have a hard time necessarily sticking with one individual game. That's always sort of been an issue that I have. Mostly because I'll look at a model and say, that's great. I'll build up a thing, and now I got to figure out something to do with it. But it's, it is it is a my turn and then your turn on the record on the books, but that's not how the game works at all. And I find that is my problem with a lot of games out there now. Age of Sigmar is honestly about the only game that is purely like it is my turn, then is your turn that I'm okay with, because there is more interaction than there used to be. There is some other things, but Infinity, even though it's not one model after another in terms of our activation, might you think from one player to another, it has that feel. Because when I'm doing something, you are paying as much attention or more attention to what I'm doing than I'm even doing. And you most likely, are going to have a reaction or something to what I'm doing. Because sooner or later, all war games come down to you need to actually be able to, take the point, shoot someone, do something like that. And if I'm doing that, you probably see me, can react, or there's other ways you can be noticed maybe than just sight. But, all right, I think that sounds good.
I mean, I have to agree. It's weird because one of my favorite games that I've kind of gravitated to as an older person is as I grow older in the hobby. Let me rephrase that. Is alternate player games or alternate turn games instead
Alternate
of I go
activation.
you go. Yeah, alternate activation, kind of like Titanicus, where it's still I go you go to an extent, but we're activating squads essentially.
Yeah.
But Infinity takes that to the extreme where it's literally, it's my turn, but you are quite actively. But something that I don't feel like any one of you said, though, is one of the big selling points also for Infinity, and this is what got me originally into the game many years ago. I think I started playing in N1, and then I played N2, and I kind of dropped off a little bit. And now I'm coming back because, oh, God, they
More Night
released the
Boys.
new. Oh, my God, the Chubby Knight. I just love that Sepulchre Knight so much. God, I hate myself.
He's
Why do
an
I do this?
awesome, cool,
I
interesting.
sold all my military
Ulysses
orders and
used to
vowed
play
never to
MO
play
back then.
again. Yeah, I vowed never to play again, and then they released. I saw the Sepulchre Knight, and I'm like, why do you do this to me? Um, no, but
Just
that's
when
my
you think
point.
you're out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just when you think that. No, but I think the game is cool, but honestly, the models just look amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I forgot who mentioned this before. I want to say it was Ulysses, but someone said before that like you just browse through the range and you're going to find something.
Yeah.
Like I picked up military orders because it was what I knew, and they didn't really change much from what I used to play. But I mean, I talked to Dexter. I was going to play monkeys. I was going to play Morats because as goofy as those guys look, they look awesome in my opinion. They
Monkey
look great.
strong.
Oh
Yeah.
my god! They play, just embrace the monkey. I was so ready, and then I just picked the military orders. But like you just kind of browse through the range, and they look different and they have different feels. Like, yeah, sure, you have Yuzheng heavy infantry and you have, Pano heavy infantry, but they look completely different. They look completely different. There's a style to them. And that's what kind of wraps me in. So, like the knight that I was about, the Holy Sepulchre Knight, is a massive model. I want to say he's on a 60 mil base. No, he's on a 50.
55.
55. They
That-
do.
Oh, is he
that's
in the
the
middle?
difference,
Of course he is. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's on a 55 mil base. He used to be on a 25 before that he got beefy.
Yeah.
But he's just a thick boy.
He
And
decided that he found his way into the GW Mythos somehow and then came
yeah,
back out.
somehow I have the original Sepulchre Knight too, and it's hilariously different. But no, it's just he looks like he looks now that he is armor 5 or armor 4. He looks like he is a heavy infantry. Now, how he's hollow projecting himself, I have no goddamn idea. But that's the thing. It looks like an awesome model, and you just kind of browse through the range and you just find something. Honestly, that's kind of like the big thing for me. But yeah, anyway.
Well, what I find with the game is that it definitely, I would say overall has a rather pronounced sci-fi aesthetic. But having said that, yeah, if you look through the different factions, there's a lot of variety to them, a lot of different look. Part of that is definitely helped by one, the painting on them, just the actual paint job skill, but also just the paint schemes. When you look at some of the armies, they do very different colors, very different looking styles, different bases, even when you look at the starters, to really try to sell to you like, yeah, we're all sci-fi, we all belong in the same world, but my army can look exceedingly different from yours. And if you want very high sci-fi, hey, you got some guys here. You want a little bit less looking sci-fi, we have those guys. You want people, who, like you said, look like a bunch of monkey men. We got that.
So still sticking with the aesthetics. Also, one other thing, just to add to it, and I guess Dan kind of touched it a little bit in terms of like just the knights alone. There is an itch that like it will scratch someone's itch at some point. Like because a lot of it comes from pop culture.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're gonna find something that you like. Like you have Aleph, that's Ghost in the Shell.
You
You
like
have
Choppy?
Hawkins-
They have Chappie and Ninja.
exactly. You like do you like Dune? We have Hawk Islam and also the Reverend Moiras. You know, did you like for some odd reason Altered Carbon? You know, you have the bolts there.
You have all
And
of
also like
Infinity.
yeah, and you also have like well, this is going into the fluff now, like with Altered Carbon, the stack we call it cube, and it's basically the same exact thing, just in a
Yeah.
different name.
Yeah, I mean, Altered Carbon is nothing like Infinity, though.
Well, no, obviously, but like some of the things of it.
It's a clean aesthetic, so you're not getting like dirty, grimy anything. If you like sharp lines, non-metal metallics, not that everybody does that, but like I play a like kind of dirty paramilitary kind of war crimes
No,
force.
you play just a bunch of thuggish war criminals. Just call
Yes,
it what it is.
but but for example, the miniatures that I painted took really well to contrast paints.
Mhm.
But I've also done and seen many people just use those like very opaque acrylic
I don't know
look
if you guys,
with
you
very
can't say that.
saturated colors. Yeah, and they're just like it takes well to that because their lines are clean, the models are designed clean. So I think like you know I'm not a fan of the like the Japanese kind of like future anime aesthetic, but they have really good. Just look at a Kaisatsu Spec Ops model.
Yeah.
That one's really cool. There's like the old Gray Fox Ninja inspired with like 3 eyes, and then there's also models like the Void Tango Miner, which just has like oozes presence. So you can get a really good looking force. You don't have to go by the designs to be able to use those miniatures or kind of the design document. It really is just like a lot of that. I never feel like I'm fighting with the model to make it look beautiful, which is also a cool thing about that.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, you have a
also
female monkey. You have a female monkey. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah.
Zerat.
Yeah.
That you
Yeah.
ever want to fall in love with a female monkey? There
Yeah.
you go.
And also, like in some cases, they do like the brains of it. Gutierre, he likes to try to keep like history involved in it. So like there was like a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't even know about, like John Hawkwood. I didn't even realize that he was an actual thing. Like I forgot
Yeah.
how long
That's
ago.
a cool story.
Yeah, or like I didn't even know about the Druze itself. Like the Druze was an actual thing.
Drew's
I
still
didn't
is a
know any
thing.
of that.
There's
Yeah,
currently a
or
Lunar
They still
Society,
exist,
but
I want to say.
they're
Yeah.
not they're not filthy war criminals like the
They are not.
Yeah.
No.
subfactions. I don't
they're
think I don't
really
actually know
cool.
anything about modern day.
I mean, it's also the same thing with like the
design.
Ikari. They're not really like jackasses. They're just Chinese Muslims and whatnot.
You mean is that the
The shot, the
Oh no,
shot?
no,
Yeah,
no, no, no. Oh
not
yeah, you're right.
Ikari.
You're right.
The shot
Sorry.
are the yeah.
Uyghurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were talking about looks and aesthetic. Yeah,
So
I just
something
think
that goes along with the looks though, and like you're saying, every faction looks different. Every faction also plays different.
Mm-hmm.
That's very
Like,
well. True. Yeah.
which is cool because there are a lot of overlap. Like you can have multiple factions that are good at. So you have like pretty core principles in the game. You have like hacking and like I'm doing air quotes to my non-camera, like magic is like the hacking equivalent in this game. And then there's shooting, which is a classic stat in a war game. There's close combat, and then there's other different skills and stuff that's added onto it, as well as extra rules like camouflage and deploying models that aren't on the table, like visually on the table, like hidden deployment, stuff like that. So, like each faction, for those that
Parachutists and
don't
all that.
know, have strengths and weaknesses. Some may have better close combat, some may have better shooting, some may have better hacking, some may just have everything, but that's very, very rare because it tends to be a very balanced game where if your faction doesn't have if you feel like you're missing something in your faction, that means maybe that faction isn't what you should be playing because maybe it's designed to not have that.
That's a good way to put that. It is intentional absences almost.
Yeah.
Like you are probably not supposed to do everything, and there's a reason why you are missing something.
Yeah.
I
And
like
that's not to say you can't shoehorn it in.
Yeah.
I've seen Dexter do some pretty nasty stuff that shouldn't be done.
Hmm.
But
Listen, we
We're
don't
sorry.
talk about what happens in the bathroom now, okay?
what happens at Rumble stays at Rumble.
There's a lot of linear elements of play, camouflage, targeting models, stunning models that you like.
Yep.
There's other ways to interact with your, as opposed to a lot of games instead of a kill state or an alive state. There's a lot of other ways to interact with your opponent or to force your opponent to do different things because of the other things that you can hacking and these like little flash pulse like laser beam bots in the game that are pretty integral to stunning your opponent because of the way the ARO system works. Sometimes you can and the way in which you interact with your opponent on the decisions you make. There's a lot of ways where there's either gamesmanship or this model is interacting in this way to force you to make a decision that is subpar for you because the other option would encourage your opponent to have a much more positive option to oppose you. So I know that doesn't necessarily make sense, but think of it as like sneaky stuff. Stunning people with tasers and flashing their lights out is all real relevant opportunities in addition to saying I'm going to put this piece of equipment here and it's going to within the zone of control. You're not going to be able to bring this model in because I can interact with it in a very favorable way. So those are ways that Infinity kind of expands that as opposed to hey man, take an armor save. It's a lot more like I'm going to dodge here. Even though I could kill you, I'm going to dodge because it advances my ability to complete an objective and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of
It's
that.
a game of choices where every choice matters.
Yeah, but just to add on to that, I remember there was like a meme way back in the day. It was like a small web comic of this guy actually introducing the game to another person, and he was just showing him the intruder, and he goes, "Oh, this guy has camouflage, he has MSV2," and then the guy just goes into this whole tirade, which is something that you'd hear off of like a 40K game.
Right.
And like basically everything that Ulysses said, there are ways around it in some form of way. And and like I said before, like the terrain is 3D. Also, the way you think has to be like in a different way. Also, like sometimes you can't just go through like straight through the front door. You have to
Unless
like
you're Inquisitor Mendoza.
listen. He's too many points. We don't talk about him. Play Ajax is better.
It's easy to be dismissive, but like Mendoza does fire flaming Molotov
Yeah, no,
grenades at people. So
yeah,
and he's not like the worst. You just have to like.
You have to build your list around him.
Right.
Gotta,
And he can be warping, which is something that some players really are very good at that. Like I am not good at using an overpriced piece that is very strong at leveraging its effect in the game. I know that that's not a strong set. I play on a much more like trade-based game style, and so that's why I move to this faction or that faction. Or I find these profiles very intriguing, as opposed to a model like
You're
Mendoza.
not going to Frieza down someone's throat. Which, for those who don't know, it's
like a big
last
burly
edition
SWAT guy.
Was the nastiest gunfighter in the game.
I mean, it actually became
pretty nasty.
I think he became even more nasty just because he's the only one that he throws 6 dice at you.
Yeah,
if he's in Tunguska.
But it's about like I may or other players may be flippant about certain profiles in the game when you're first kind of entering it and say, don't use Saito or don't use Armand or don't use tags, something like that. They may say something along those lines. But the truth is, like, all of these options are very viable. It just depends on how you want to approach the game. And you'll probably, through kind of trial and error, a few options, maybe a little bit of guidance, find your niche once you've kind of mastered the general intricacies of what the game is, which is to be honest, as much as I love Infinity, I think it is important to stop at all the great things we say and say, when you're getting into Infinity, you are getting into a system where genuinely, when I started playing, I didn't win a game for the first 6 months.
You're gonna get your ass kicked constantly.
And it has a lot more to do with just like level of experience and the options you can get exposed to. And there is kind of like a gradient to that. You're like, okay, my guy's going to shoot at your guy. Okay, maybe don't throw less dice than your opponent is. Okay, cool. All right. Now my guy is going to interact with a guy who can delay their action. Okay, maybe, etc. And then kind of so on and so forth. And you kind of all of a sudden level up in these small ways. But it is a truth about Infinity is like, this is not a beer and pretzels game. This is very much like I make sure I get a sleep the night before when I play a game of Infinity, because after a 3-round tournament, I like barely can figure out how to order a pizza. But like, it's so satisfying when you're at that level. But it's important to kind of know that that is a real deal, real respect with the game. I think that like kind of the addition change between AOS 2 and AOS 3, where there's all these other states of like gameplay and transitions, phases, interactions that have kind of been leveraged onto these new players. That kind of growing period is happening constantly at the beginning of the game of Infinity, because you're just going to see the first time you encounter a speculo killer is like, you know, the first time you like
You
the
just
first
don't want
time
to play
you
the game anymore.
yeah, but like the truth is like what that is the level up moment is like you meet this piece that's like, how do I interact with it? How do I
Fire missile
decide?
launcher.
Yeah, exactly. Like all these kind of like strange feel bad. So I whenever I'm teaching somebody new the game or I'm working with them who is kind of new and they haven't gone through the paces, I like to kind of say, hey, you know, when I joined and started playing this game, I appreciated it for the wealth of opportunities I had and realized that my limited knowledge was going to mean that I really shouldn't look into the first list of games that I'm playing and expect to have a competitive option until I start being able to speak that language of AROs, reactions, interesting profiles, camouflage tokens, hacking networks, those kinds of things. And then you layer on objectives. So it's like there's a lot to get into with the game in terms of what it asks the player to be at a competitive level. But in terms of interesting interactions, cool, unique moments, satisfying decisions, there is nothing better. No sweeter sauce. So I would say that.
And I would just add to what Ulysses is saying, all of that is correct. And when you start playing, don't come in with the mindset of I want to win this game. It will turn you off to it. If you're a competitive human being, which I think a lot of us are, if you come in with the mindset of I want to win this game, I want to get good so I can win, you're gonna end up getting frustrated with yourself, maybe with your opponent. The better way to go about it when you're learning is to set little goals. Go into a game, go into a training game, find a rule interaction that you think is interesting, and see if you can predict your outcome on that rule interaction, and then try to initiate that in the game in some way. Come up with the plan and have little goals in your beginning games that'll make it more enjoyable for you. That's the one thing I like about Infinity. Even when I lose, as long as I've learned something, and I'm still learning stuff now, like it's an enjoyable experience for me. And if you go about it that way, when you get absolutely your butt handed to you, you're not going to be like, God, that game was terrible. Like I can literally count on on one hand, on two fingers, the number of games that I've had that I've like walked away from and been like, that was a bad game.
Mhm.
And that was just more so state of mind and the one time maybe a little too much alcohol.
I think few games offer. So I played a tournament recently that Dexter Keenan ran, and
And I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, no.
and it was,
That,
hey,
that,
I was
that,
winning
that,
until you left. I was winning until you left.
that was like a crime that was happening, and you just couldn't do anything to stop it.
Sure. Yeah.
Well,
So my last game was very challenging because of the matchup and kind of the way the game operates. But the truth is, like, I can't think. What I wanted to really highlight was that, like, I can't think of another game that I've played where I've said, I made this decision 2 interactions ago because I wanted to make sure that your miniature here could not have this opportunity. And that kind of like follow through and path of execution doesn't exist it's just very rarely in many game systems, and Infinity offers that in spades. I usually am thinking at my level of play right now, and I think at most people who are looking to play it semi-competitively or with that competitive bent, if you want to be approaching the game much more in that like structural decision-oriented way where you start saying, I have to win this 50-50 roll 2 decisions ago, so that way I could be in this position here, and I need to, kind of that like forward thinking. It's a lot less than
Chess
I'm going
player's
to kill
mentality.
exactly. Actually, that's a really good way of approaching it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe for me, I haven't really played chess. I'm a checkers guy. But
Oh,
for
Lord.
me,
It uses the same concept, but
no, no.
I think
I
it
mean,
highlights. So this is I originally had this at the bottom of the notes, but I think it's good to bring up now, so that way someone doesn't sit here hear all this cool stuff and then. And I agree wholeheartedly with that idea of you're gonna your first 10 games. Let's assuming not crazy dice rolls or things like that, obviously. But say your first 10 games, if you win one, like hey, great on you. That is potentially very surprising. It's not necessarily that the game is always even has to be that it's hyper competitive. It's just that at the natural level someone has when they've played it for a while, they're going to be making good decisions. And this is a game where, we can talk a bit of that idea of is it a fallacy or not? This idea of all you need is 10 models. But let's say that's what you're rocking with 10 or even add a few extra. Let's say have 12. But if
The
you
max
make some bad
15.
choices, yeah, you position wrong, you turn the wrong way because this game has facing. You make one small error, and that small error might be able to snowball into something very big. And I think that's, if you're the type of person who, maybe at the one set you want to be able to compete early on, or you want to be able to feel that you're making intelligent choices early on, that's not going to be this sort of game. It's going to be, difficult in the beginning. It might, the hope is not to let it get frustrating or anything like that, but you need to learn from it. And as you go through and you learn more and you learn why they chose these models, you're going to enjoy it more. The other thing I will say, as because we talked about a lot of the why to play, the one thing I will say is, in terms of not necessarily why not, but in terms of one of the difficulties is, you'll notice it here. When you play other games, I find I have this unit and here's what they're called, and I have these other things. Here, since it's really a model by model basis, with all the factions they have, all these models, a lot of them very individually named. You look at a lot of their bigger game systems, units have very similar names, or it might be, this type of army. Oh, all their things are named this with a word after it. I can get an understanding. Like, no, when they start naming off things, if I don't have the army builder open, I have no idea what we're talking about. I don't even necessarily know the faction. I kind of heard the name. Kind of has this ting to it. Might be one of these guys. Let me go and take a look there. So it's a steep learning curve for the game. It's a steep learning curve to play.
And it's a steep upkeep.
Really? Okay.
Because if you don't play for a while, and I am in this category where I would go on long hiatuses, you lose some of that innate innate positioning skills and that like muscle memory of I need to do this so that three moves from now I'm not screwing myself. Like you lose that. Like for me at least. For some people
No, I
maybe not.
understand, yeah.
But for me it's very much like if you don't use it you lose it type deal.
This will not be your casual game.
Yeah,
No.
so let me. Okay,
Yeah.
It could
So
be. It could be though.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let me.
You could be casual with your friends in terms of we're gonna sit here and play and we're gonna have fun and like, oh, if I move here, that's like a bad idea, right? Yeah, like we can play casual in that way. But to me, if you want to, and again, that's not necessarily a great idea or work that way. But if you want to actually play the game, yeah, this is going to be the game. You try to really get into it. I think.
I think the
don't
problem
you
is
just
that
stick around them.
the problem is if you say that you're playing as just a quote unquote casual game,
Yeah.
it's gonna turn into that. Where's the rule book? Because you don't pay it because you don't
Very true.
know the rules that well enough to care, and there's just so
So-
much.
So listen. So I came in, and so I'm going to speak to like literally all 6 of your points. So with the idea of a steep learning curve, I came in N2, right? And this is back when crits were crits, not what they are today. This was crits. Oh no. Yeah, I know Dexter's shaking his head because I played military orders. You crit me, I don't care. I crit you. But oh, I love 2 wounds. But so I remember playing one of my first games, and I was playing military orders, and I had a very beginner friendly like army to play. This was Joan. It was Joan of Arc, Deferson. Back in the day, this was I think 3 Hospitaller Knights. So it was basically almost a 200-point kill team in a 300-point game. It was a block, if you will. And I played against Brian. This is my first game, so I was still learning hacking and everything. And I learned facing that first game because he played, I want to say it was Ariadna, and out of nowhere, some jackass comes from the back line with a dual boarding shotgun, and just mows down, like starts mowing down my heavy infantry with dual boarding shotguns, and every time I'm turning around, he's just mowing them down. And I was just like, oh, this was a good fun game. Let's try this again. So we re-rack it. And then I learned something that game, and I learned something that game. And about 10 or 12 games in, I'm starting to learn how to play my list. And then I add something else to the list. I think I added a Seraph, and then I learned how to play with that. So it's steep in a way of like when you're first playing, it is somewhat hard. But if you keep playing your army and you keep learning their jinxies, it actually becomes somewhat it becomes habitual. You start doing habitual things, like you start playing against someone who throws down smoke in your military orders, and you don't have I don't know why you wouldn't have a multi-respective visor which can see through, but like, you don't have one. You know how to kind of start positioning your troops so that hopefully they don't pop out of smoke and stab you in the neck. But in terms of like upkeep, I 100% agree as well, because I dropped the game at the very, very beginning of N3. So this would have been, oh god, Dexter can remind me. When did N3 drop? Jesus,
Like
was that before?
like 8 years ago almost now, right?
No.
No, that was N2.
No, it came out 2015.
Oh, so I did play through N3. Jesus. So I played through N3, and then I dropped right around when I sold them. It was literally about a year before COVID hit. And I was picking it up now. I'm reading the rule book, and it's amazing how much the game actually slightly changed.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
And it's almost, it sounds stupid weird to say this. It's the same core concepts, but it's almost a different game, right? So one of the first things I saw was the crit change, right? That was the biggest thing for me. Where I was watching, I like to learn by watching YouTube videos. So what I saw was the crit change, which happened, I think, again, that one I don't know how long ago it happened, but I saw that happen, and I saw it. I'm like, wait, he didn't take an auto wound. What do you mean this is an extra damage roll? And I kind of saw that. I was like, oh my god, this changes the game immensely, right? And it's stuff like that you kind of lose if you kind of stop playing for a little bit. But it's easy to pick back up only because the core rules are still there. The range bands are still there. The +3, -3, -6 is still there. It's just certain things have changed that kind of make you change the way you play. But anyway, yeah.
The Infinity mindset is very transferable once you've learned it to other games. I would say it is demanding, and like, let's be honest, like if you're talking to a guy like off the street looking to play a miniature game and you're like, dude, you're gonna lose your first 12 games easy, don't even worry about it, like after that you can change your expectations. That's a huge ask to ask somebody, like without the correct context of like, it's not really about like winning games. It's those little elements that'll get you through to that first part. You'll be like, I've learned how to make this decision better, and I've learned how to interact with my opponent better, and oh, I finally defeated that speculo, and then I realized that it is an impact on what my opponent was able to interact in with the game, and so I can change on this nexus and move, and so on and so forth, right? But the point is that like, it is a real big ask, but I found that the skills and the knowledge and the way I approach my game can be applied to any other game that I approach or want to take up, and feel like it is a valuable level. I feel like I leveled up as a gamer in general when I became better at Infinity. And I think that that's like it's not really like a selling point, but it is something to say like this is a good skill set you're going to have to learn in any medium in terms of like order activation, transition, playthrough units, objective play, all of these details in terms of like specific profiles, handling overpowered units, those kinds of things. And game plans A, B, and C. So I think that like those skill sets which you learn in other games can be applied from Infinity to other games as well, in a very much more structured and tangible way, as opposed to like Malifaux or something. Not Malifaux's bad, but just
Well, yeah,
I haven't tried in the third edition, so it
you
could be
play
bad.
Malifaux from time to time, correct?
me.
Like
Huh?
you're not knocking Malifaux because you think it's a bad game. Like you've played it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
still
was
do.
like, yeah, Summer Teeth Jones, let's go, woohoo! But like, no, like it's not. What I'm saying is like the card system and the mechanics and the way that like that hero-based combat game interacts is not necessarily as tangible as some of the skill sets of like I need a game plan besides. Well, I mean, I guess if you're Dexter, you can just be like Ajax kills you and then that's it. But like everybody else.
I mean, that's all you really need. It's just Ajax.
Yeah, you like plasma. But like, yeah, so I just want to like highlight that like I think it's important to enter the game if
With the
you
right
are in it.
expectation.
Yeah, with the correct expectations. Thank you.
Yeah.
It seems to me too, and this may be an unfair statement, but it seems to me too that it's more of a older player base that gets into Infinity.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like older, but I mean it's more grad students and people with families and people working crazy job. Like it's very much a game that it's a real dichotomy of a situation because it's a quick game to play. Like physically it's a quick game to play, but there's so much mental investment in it. But there's something about it, I think maybe it's the price point when you first get into it, and more people have more responsibilities and less money on hobbies, so they pivot into it. That's kind of how I got into it. Or maybe it's just it satisfies a different itch than a lot of other games that maybe when you're a little older and a little more tired in life, like I am now that I'm all old and bitter.
Are you okay, Keenan? Please
Hold on,
tell us.
you're barely 30. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're a child.
I know what
Stop
you're
that
saying.
talk right now.
See, nobody saw my face before this, Dexter. They didn't see my face, and you had to ruin it.
No, you know what the funny thing is? They've seen you. You just don't know them.
I-
You know,
No. I recognize your faces. I just don't know if you knew who I was without seeing a camera. But no, it's one of those things where I feel like it's as life gets a little crazier and there's less time for hobbies and personal things. Like this tends to be an easier game to pick up because there's a lot of mental energy that you can invest in the game while you're doing other things. Like let's say you're doing yard work or you work in a job that doesn't require a whole bunch of mental energy.
like Count Snow.
Well, it's a different story entirely. You shouldn't be paying attention if
I
you're
work at
driving.
the sheet metal cutting factory, and all of a sudden I'm starting to think,
Jeez.
how can I cut 3 SWC off of my list so I can include the new the
3
two Nazi
SWC.
firsts?
Or while you're
Three fingers.
stacking bags because you're working an airline, going, man, how could I fit this model into my list?
Well, no, but what I'm saying is Infinity is a game that you can consume a lot of time with and a lot of mental energy, but it doesn't necessarily need to be something you're in front of the table for. Like it's, yeah, I don't know.
Keenan makes a good point about it because one of the things that Corvus Belli as a company, and I think it is good to kind of transition to talking about Corvus Belli as a company as well, because it is a different experience. I mean, everybody's used to like the abusive shoe hitting boot heel company that Games Workshop is, right? And I'm not saying that, and Corvus Belli, I guess, has its problems. But as a company, I find them to be fairly modern in their approach, at least reasonably. They have their rules free online. You can go and check them out while we're blabbering on this podcast. You can go to Infinity Army, the Army Builder, the Infinity Army Builder. Start building armies to every profile.
You
It
download
gives
it
you-
on your phone for free,
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So when you're like taking your rest break at your job at the sheet metal factory, which is what I do,
Or taking a
um,
shit.
yeah, you're able to very much like play around with these ideas, and they're immediately tangible. There is no barrier of entry for price point in terms of rules, gameplay, your ability to look things up. None. You're not making links or doing other things that a lot of games have access to, but it's incredibly easy. And like once you found Infinity Army, Comlog, all of the resources for the game are available all the time. You can, instead of looking at TikToks all the time, you can be looking at your Infinity Army and say, Dexter will say to me, he'll be like, "Hey, what did you think of this profile in your list? Or what did you think of this guy?" And then immediately it's like a week-long process of me managing different ideas.
I mean, this is us on a
executing
daily
everything.
basis. Like, I always ask you something like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Like, every single time.
The
But
answer is
like-
it's trash.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No,
It's
but
like
the
that
truth.
meme. It's like that meme of the husband and wife in bed together, and she's like, or girlfriend,
Then he's
boyfriend in
thinking of
bed
other
together.
women.
Yeah,
like-
it's like, it's like Ulysses said. How do I shave 3 SWC off this list?
Which is like it's like, do I really need like, oh man, so it's actually really engaging, and because there is their tech savviness is a little better than most companies, and their willingness to
They're very
yeah,
accessible. Like
it's
the actual owner operator, like the executive officers of the company are present in the community, which is
mhm.
That's a rarity in a lot of
Yeah.
miniature games nowadays. It
Like-
seems.
Yeah.
I mean, like obviously, as you said, like the big thing is that like you don't have to carry around like 5 books just so you have your your rule
Oh,
sets.
yeah.
You don't need to get
Yeah.
like whatever the equivalent of a white dwarf for Cover's Belly would be, because that's the only way you can play your army. It's just, in my opinion, this is the reason why I like playing the game so much. Like,
I mean,
I don't need to
okay,
carry all
so
that stuff.
again,
you know.
personal thing here. You look at, okay, so I bought my 300 point army, right? And it's not the best army. It's not a tournament army, but it's something I wanted to buy. I bought a military order starter box, and literally just to round off the list, I bought the. He's somewhat ugly, but the Montesa Knight on a bike.
oh
That's
Yeah.
oh god, his helmet. I will try to fix that helmet no matter what. But that's 300 points. That's 300 points. I have the rules online for free. I have the army builder for free, and I bought myself what's the box? $80 for the starter box.
yeah. You're
Sure.
probably
And
in
then
what
the Montesa
110 all
Knight-
total?
80 and
Yeah, so
100 or something like
let's say
that. Yeah.
110, and let's not even throw in discounts, whatever. Took me $110, $120 for a 300 point army that I can play. It's technically viable, right? The Montesa Knight's pretty damn good. I love him. But that $120 to start a game. That's it.
Yeah.
That's literally it.
It's pretty great when you start asking people, like, you're not at Blood Bowl team levels, but like I think that most people spend more on their Necromunda or kill
Absolutely.
team forces as most Infinity players do on their entire
Wait, hold on. Wait, though. Hold on. There's the hidden cost. Because tokens.
Uh,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
we'll get
Well-
to that. Yeah, there's some other. You can like any
Valid.
like
That's
any
a
good
valid
thing
point,
you get
but
in
you
cheap.
you can
Yeah.
make them for free.
exactly.
Oh,
That is
no,
true.
no,
I made it free.
actually, to go back to that point, they actually do have a download section in the site
do.
to let you download it and then just print it out.
You're right.
That's how I did it. I glued it to
And you just put in
wooden
those.
25 millimeter maces. I glued the
Yeah.
wooden 25 millimeter maces.
Yeah, so
How I
what,
did it
what,
when I started too.
so what
Yeah.
did it
Before I
cost?
became a
What did it
complete
cost?
addict.
Zero cost, baby. Woo.
So I think that's a good thing to highlight about the company in general, and like I think it's rare form in these days. Like I've been looking at Marvel Crisis Protocol, and like
That's a
I
great
don't
game.
right. It looks like really cool. I don't know if the rules are free.
It's there.
Are they? Okay, cool. So like that just seems to me, at least now, is kind of where I am with as a war gamer. That seems to me like not like I'm willing to buy into a system, but being able to say, here's some rules, here's how a game plays. Here, go mess around on the army builder for like what your army would look like for free before you invest at all. Is like it's really smooth, and it lets you like start messing around with ideas and kind of seeing where you are. So that's like kind of a good. I think it's a really good bonus.
It's like the
Savvy.
first little taste before your dealer reels you in.
I
Yeah,
think
that's what it is.
it's sort of almost a poisoning from the sort of GW well, because many companies now, actually, when you take a look, most companies now do rules for free, or they'll do them for free, but hey, they also can sell you the book if you want the hardcover book or a softcover book or anything like that. GW is sort of seemingly overall one of the last holdouts of you will pay us for our rules, so much so that in their app for the newer factions, when oh, you have blank special rule and it's your faction say special rule. Yeah, it's locked behind unless you've
Okay.
bought the book to unlock it in the app. So I mean they
Nuts.
they just
If you
started doing that
play,
for
wait,
Complete
hold on.
madness.
Wait, Dave.
Yeah.
If you play Dark Angels, you need the rulebook. You
Don't play
need the Dark Angels. You need the Dark Angels Codex. You need the Space Marine Codex because they steal from the Space Marine Codex the units. You need any White Dwarf stratagems that have come out that add addition to it. How many did I get to? Rulebook? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm missing one. Yeah, that's already. I'm up to 4. I'm up to 4, and I'm missing one.
To do, which most people do, I think you use a source that has it all, like Battlescribe, or something like that. So then I just have it all there. I print out my list with all that information, and I don't have to bring all those books with me because that is the sort of problem. But I find a lot of other systems don't require that anymore, which is nice, and I hope that they do change. But I'm glad that Corvus Belli does that, because if you're not the 600-pound or 800-pound gorilla in the room, if you're making people pay for your stuff up front, if I can't even know what your game looks like unless I pay you $50 to start, I'm not going to start your game. I'm not going to know anything about it. It's you shouldn't do that when you're GW, but you can get away with it because I don't care what game store you go to, you can get a game of 40K in. You go there, you'll be able to get a 40K within 2 days. The unfortunate thing is any other game you play, there might be community, maybe there's not, maybe there's a couple people who play, maybe you got to find the right store. It's going to be tougher, so lowering that barrier of entry is vital. Towards history, as you said, so this is information I found. Correct me on any of this, or you guys can fill it in. So for the company itself, they should be celebrating their 20-year this year, then, or have celebrated their 20-year anniversary as a company.
Dragon Lady model or something, right?
Yeah.
I think I
Special
don't have
edition
it with
model.
me, but yes, it says it on it what year it is.
Yeah, it's 2001.
Yeah. I looked up on their website because I was like, let me see what they say about themselves. Currently, what they list, at least on their website, that they list Infinity that they do. I know they do Aristea, and then they mention a manga that they do. But when I clicked on it to see what is this about, it gave me a 404 error.
Okay, so it's not. First and foremost, it's not a manga. It's
okay.
It's a.
That's what they called it, though. On their website, they even said a
No,
manga.
no. Don't do it, Dave.
No.
I consider it a manga. I'm with you.
Mangas read right to left. This is left to right.
Oh boy,
I thought that's what they said on their website.
I was waiting for this to happen. I was like, yes, he did it.
Looking it up now.
It's a graphic novel.
It's a graphic novel. Yeah.
Sure.
That is stylized like a manga, and for us uneducated, unweebish people, it is a manga. But if you are a weeb, it is not a manga.
You're still wrong.
Sorry,
I'm okay with being wrong.
Listen,
that's what they put on their website.
If it doesn't scream at me when I look at it from left to right, telling me I'm reading from the wrong direction, it's not a manga.
They do supplemental content as a way of kind of injecting new profiles and kind of pushing the story along for the game, which are good. Which are good things. The outcast and then the betrayal, I think, are those two little elements. They added a lot of interesting profiles and the ability to kind of shake something up, as well as tell kind of a story and universe, which is really cool.
Yeah, they're worth picking up. I think they're $20 a piece about.
Yeah.
And they both come with a model.
If they still do. I'm not sure if they still do.
Oh,
They
yeah. I mean, they may
the
not.
truth is they're more on like the Kickstarter game. So
Yeah.
to supplement that other content, they did Defiance, which was like this huge kind of like big deal for the company. It like
It's
broke a
basically
bunch of
Descent.
yeah, it's huge. It's a different kind of special game. Kickstarter exclusive. They injected a lot of new profiles into the game. That was really cool with it. All these miniatures are really cool, characterful, and interesting.
But there was
I
one
didn't
problem
really.
with it.
Sorry,
If
Uh,
you were
COVID?
if you were a board
No.
gamer, you would not want to pick it up because everything was in metal.
Yeah.
And you had to
and
assemble it.
unassembled and everything
Yes.
like that. Yeah, board
yeah,
gamers hate assembling models. They want everything already pre-painted, everything like that. No
savages,
assembly, no paint.
savages. No, I think
To
like,
which
but
Corvus went, suck it, nerds.
the
Yeah,
new
exactly.
the new
Exactly.
one though is Tag Raid, which is they're
Done
kind
now.
of trying to be experimental. Yes, it's done now.
Done.
But they're I think they envision doing this pretty regularly over the course of like a year and a half, depending on how these Kickstarters work. They're wildly successful. It allows and gives them funding and a reason to do older models as part of your Kickstarter. So one of the savvy things they've been doing is saying, if you buy this bundle, you can also get these models that we're only going to print for this bundle that are out of print. So you'd be like, oh, the old Dragao or something like that. I don't know if that's an example, but it's an old model that's somewhat sought after. They will print. You can buy it at retail without a huge markup on the secondary market. So you'd get it at $35 or whatever the tag would be worth. Add that onto your Kickstarter. They'll print it out and it'll be a part, or they'll cast the model and then it'll be a part of your Kickstarter, which I think is really savvy considering like it's between. They are a large scale company that kind of can be criticized for saying, why are you doing a Kickstarter if you think that this is a viable product? You really
Sent our
shouldn't.
Simon.
Yeah. I think that there's a little bit of that criticism, but I think they've at least for me in my eyes. I mean, I haven't kickstarted either of them, mostly because I don't need the models for what they're offering, but to be fair, I think that it's a really imagine if GW did a Kickstarter and then they were like, oh, what's like a really hard let's say they did a Kickstarter about, let's say, Tau versus Chaos Space Marines. And then in that Kickstarter, they were like, by the way, if you throw us $50, we'll give you a Sisters of Battle squad that you can't find anymore. I think like I'm trying to make like a corollary of something that doesn't exist.
Castrican. They'll give you a Castrican squad.
Yes. Okay, that's actually a really good example, like a Castrican squad.
I'd do
where
that
you're
in a heartbeat.
right, and
So
so
sad
they
I sold my Castrican. I don't even play 40k anymore, and I'm sad I sold that squad.
yeah, it's like throwing gold out the window. I just think it's like, but I think that that's kind of savvy. I think that GW, if they followed that model of an opportunity, that would be very interesting for them to offer. I know it's like not realistic, but just as an example, they are going the Kickstarter route as a way of funding their supplemental content. You can think what you will about that, them being a company that is producing many miniatures and etc. But for me, I'm like, oh, they can do the Azrael, they can do some of these other miniatures that just aren't really accessible anymore in an easy way. And I
they
think
do
that's a
price
really cool
lock
value.
it though with that,
Yes.
which is
Out of curiosity, do you think that if the thing was still going on and they said, "Hey, here's another thing you can buy," and it's the tick belong, do you think that would probably like skyrocket the sale a little more?
probably would.
Absolutely. I think they're saving that. So there's a very famous, very good profile for Pan-Oceania, and it's called the Tick Belong. It's this like really fun, like cool climbing tag, which is these like giant robots that you'll see. They're interesting profiles. This is a particularly good one, and any list that can take it, it has a lot of upside and it's very valuable to good players and kind of bad players. It's just kind of a fun model to play with.
But still very good.
Yeah, and they just haven't reprinted it. It's like one of the number one things that like I think that they should eventually, because right now I just saw a special edition Tick Belong, which was part of an $80 set as part of 2 robot tags.
Yeah.
The
Where was
special
this? I
edition,
would go buy that right now.
yeah, the special edition itself is is worth like $190 as for one miniature, which is like a
Dang,
nuts
Dexter,
price.
you want the one you sold? You traded me back?
Well, I
Give it
mean,
to
you
you for
still owe me.
150.
Well, you still owe me for the trade, so you're not even done yet.
Yeah,
so
I know.
you can give
I
it back
I
to me
need
if
to
you
find
want
the rest
to.
of my House of Seeds.
But I sold like an out of print. I sold my out of print Ulan tag for like $80, and I think that that's like a very fair market
Yeah.
price. I don't think I'm gouging anybody on that. I mean, whatever. If somebody feels that way, that's perfectly fine. But I'm like, I think that like that is like a reasonable price for that miniature because they
It's a very
haven't printed.
desirable miniature that you can't
Yeah.
get any other way.
So them being able to tack on stuff like that to these Kickstarters, I think is a very interesting. If I was buying this Kickstarter, I would definitely be looking into something like that as a supplement, just kind of as a fun way. You get 1,000,000 miniatures. It's a pretty good deal, I think, I guess. But them kind of doing that
yeah.
as a way
Get a
of
board game out of it.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
and in general, kind of credibly being able to tack on these things and find a reason to print these out of print models. It's pretty cool, better than like the made to order kind of like cycle of like, do you guys like wood elves? Well, we got one of them that's reprinted along with like 3 other like Vaulton characters and stuff. So like I think that that's really cool. I'm not. I just think it's interesting. But
I think the Kickstarter is fair for them because I mean we sit here and we say, oh, they're a fairly big company. At the end of the day, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but no hobby company, GW is the biggest of them, but still, at the end, it's not really a big company when we say the word big company. All other miniature companies I mean, some are very small, but all the other ones are reasonably small. I mean, it can be a lot of cost. I mean, I'm sure they would love to be printing up any model that's currently out of stock because if you could, then that's money you could make. But they usually go out of stock because there's issue with molds or something like that. So, I mean, we're still talking about a company that, yeah, they use this funding to be able to run the lines that they need to be able to get people the product they want. I mean, I give some shit to Sigmar who does it because theirs almost feels like a pure pre-order system. But if you're going to do it right and you're going to give me, sort of a new product that maybe you couldn't do otherwise, even if you're an established company, I'm okay with that because you're still a reasonably small company when all things are said and done.
yeah.
And so I pulled up on their website where I got it from because I looked up like, hey, what do they do? This is on their What We Do. And under Infinity Outrage, it says, Outrage is the manga inspired by the Infinity Universe, blah, 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 blah. So blame the Spaniards for any of my misgivings here.
Yeah, get wrecked, Dexter.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. What?
Wait, what?
Yeah,
All right,
I'm looking at
so
some of their add-ons right now on the Kickstarter, and
yeah, just
like the
scroll through it as well. It has
Magariba.
nice stuff.
Yeah, there's really nice stuff, but like the Magariba, the Oyurai, the old iguana, the salamandra. Nobody cares about the seraph, but like the old Azrael.
Oh,
Some of these other tag
what the
stuff.
fuck?
I'm
Seraph
being a
is-
little incendiary here, but
Oh, what? Also, wait, stupid question. The Tick Belong used to be Tony, right? Until
No.
she died.
No.
Tony
What
is
is Tony?
the
What is
special
Tony was
edition one.
Tony,
that was-
no. Tony wasn't a tick belong, but a whole different one. This is a basic tick
Got it.
belong.
I haven't played a Consumento since Tony died. Felt
Tick
so
belongs
silly.
are in MO also, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
There's
Yeah.
a military, but yeah, yep, they are the same somewhat.
Yeah.
But anyway, just something to note about things they produce and kind of your access to what their miniatures are. If you're kind of going in a broad spectrum of what the company does and how you would approach what they offer versus other ones. Some limited edition models. The secondary market's pretty robust. If you're looking for something, you can probably find it. Maybe not immediately, but definitely.
If you're looking for
Okay.
something, just email me. I probably have it in my basement.
Yeah, he probably
What?
does.
I mean, the amount of terrain that the Infinity produces on the secondary market is insanity to the point where people in 40K and Heresy actually use some of the Infinity terrain for like Zone Mortalis or Kill Team. It is insanity.
Wow.
Oh,
How
yeah.
much
I believe
terrain?
it.
Wait, those bases actually fit into those 25 mils?
Yeah, it
Cool.
does. There was one. Was it? Who was the company that I was at Mythicos, and they were doing Space Hulk, and they used some of the drop terrain. I'm trying to remember the damn company's name, but it's one of the companies that just produces terrain for Infinity, and they were using that drop terrain for filling out the Space Hulk hallways, and it worked really, really, really well. Sometimes the what's the word I'm looking for? The aesthetic doesn't match always. A noodle hut doesn't really make a lot of sense in 40K. Um, but
There's like worlds in
Noodles for the noodle god.
40K. Yeah, there's worlds in 40K that are still feudal.
true.
Like that's the whole idea is when you have 100 billion worlds, your worlds could be anything. One of the worlds could essentially be noodle huts.
But yeah, no, the terrain just. For example, one of the things I was looking for was it was Foreground. Foreground does some really great stuff for because I kind of like their stuff for Titanicus because it's pre-painted or I guess pre-colored. I don't even know how to explain that. But Foreground has some really nice things for Infinity at the 20 millimeter range, and it just works. It just works for 40K, and so people use it as well. So anyway, the secondary market is insanity. And of course, you have bases, dice, token. I mean, did we mention tokens yet? Have we mentioned?
Only in passing.
So
Yeah,
just
in
to kind of
passing.
mention to the people listening to the podcast. So we were talking about like the free tokens you can print, and they offer it for free. But if you really want to go hard and you want to have extra fancy armies, you can actually buy the legitimate like tokens for your army, right? So you can have customized military order command tokens and tokens and so on and so forth in colors that for your army. And I think they're acrylic.
Yeah.
Usually
they're
acrylic, yes.
Yeah, they're acrylic.
Are you gonna buy each one so you can just put it like like their symbol and just use it as a base?
Why would you do that to me? Why?
I don't know, because at one point you were doing clear bases. You might as well just do it.
Okay, first of all, I'm like poor now because I had to name all of my 300 custodies. So when I recover from that,
you didn't have to.
You caused yourself a problem that you yourself could have solved. You were the
So
cause of and
Well,
solution.
I'm assuming you're also poor because you bought Pep's
Wow.
tickets along with your Horse Heresy ticket also.
Okay, I haven't been to a convention in 20 years.
We determined earlier that was a lie. We talked about the convention, and you both worked.
We worked at it, and I think that doesn't count. I haven't been to like.
No, it was like
around
Historicon. That doesn't count ever.
Yeah.
Shade, the amount of shade. No, but the tokens, like I said, the secondary market is insane. You can get these beautiful, and they are beautiful. They look nice. Dexter has a set of them, and I sometimes just stare at them because they're so freaking beautiful.
I have like 3 different sets, just FYI.
They're expensive, but no, they're beautiful. You have the secondary terrain market. You have people who do custom dice for the game. You have people who do command panels. Yep. There are so many ridiculous. My friend printed me a 3D printed command panel, in red. Will I use it? Probably not, because I kind of want the Warsenal one. But still, like, there's just so much secondary stuff.
Speaking of panels, what are the ones that Rich and George and all of them are getting?
Oh, the Micro Art Studio.
That's what they're the Micro Art Studio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a Kickstarter, which
yes, it was.
The big selling point of this, and this is what like I dared someone to come in with a cowboy hat with, is that it comes with a holster.
It does.
Wait,
that's what it was.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it comes with a holster.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
they were showing it, and you can put your own symbol on it that you want, like you get your
So basically, what I think Josh, myself, Brain, and I think George did was we all took like waifu pictures and just stuck it onto where it's supposed to be.
No,
that's why you saw that one time we were like putting like I had the Quints, and Josh had Evangelion. That's what we were doing.
And even besides tokens, you have the silhouettes, right? I think, can you still buy silhouettes? They're like those beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got the silhouettes. You got the 3D.
They come with most of the things now too, though.
Yeah, because silhouettes are actually very important in this game.
So, do they come with holographic projections anymore?
Yes.
Oh God, please. Oh no, where is it? I'm trying to find it.
War
Is it
Tunnel?
I put in the general.
Yeah.
The
Okay, hold on.
You put
acrylic.
and I just put in about the Kickstarter so you can take a look at
Yeah,
it.
it's worse.
There's
Oh,
a
God.
video. You don't have a chance to watch that, but later watch the short video they do, and it's. You ever see those old videos of like it's in black and white, and they're like, "Man, it's fucking hard to make pasta, isn't it?" And there's a person just burning themselves and just spilling their food all over the place. It is essentially that. It's a person trying to pick up tokens and just knocking models off the table and all kinds of things. It's great. It is so good.
There you go, Dan.
The acrylic market is really expanded. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I would love to see other games be able to take what Infinity has done on their secondary kind of developer market, because I think they're just CB has a good relationship with distributing and sharing their. I don't think they're like sharing their IP, but they're like, it's okay if you use our logo here as long as you kind of
Not
follow.
exactly true. I don't know how much info Keenan can tell you, but
Okay, but I would say this is that like I found that on the secondary market, if I play Drews, so if I want like a Drews coaster with like Drews command tokens and like all of my orders are Drews, and then I also have like a little like 3D printed Drews like little thing to like flick at Dexter across the table. Like I could it's not like unreasonable for me to have all of those items that I listed be available to me in some form or another. Most of them from the same retailer. Most of them would be accessible, and I can do like a lot of cool different stuff. They have like
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff there where like typically you would have to go through a lot of hoops by like taking a JPEG and then like slicing it, turning it into PNG, changing the transfer over, and then going to your like buddy who has his own laser printer and then like being like, hey, could you print out this like Taurian Concordat symbol for me or whatever? Like you don't have to do that in Infinity. Like I don't think I've ever. There's so much available to me that any need where if I want to customize or make something my own, I would find it accessible. If I wanted my hologram camouflage markers to be Drew's themed, I could do that. And there's a lot of options.
I'm not sure if you guys know Gaming with the Cooler by any chance on YouTube.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when he was doing, I think he's still doing his Infinity thing. But have you ever seen his dice tray?
Can't
No,
say I
It's
have.
so it's a small black that it's the small black trays that we have at the store, and it was basically a logo of military orders. Everyone's always asked about that picture, and Brett was the one that made it. And the thing is that there's actually only two made. And guess who has the second one?
Dexter's pointing a thumb at himself with
Two thumbs. There's now.
Hey, you
incredible
too, Jeff.
smugness.
FYI,
Dexter, yeah.
it is the original. FYI.
Except no substitutes.
Yep.
Dexter, I'd also like to point out I actually hate you for posting not just the holo projector, but very specifically the Knight of the Holy Sepulchre holo projector.
Excuse me. I'm. What did I say at the very beginning of this whole entire podcast? I'm a war core. My job is to
God, it
That's
looks
true.
so good
His
too.
job is to get you in.
It looks so good.
There's a lot of really cool stuff like that. That like level of
Oh my
customization
God.
and interest is genuinely available with very little difficulty in finding what you need is what I would say, which is really cool. Like I like building my own crap from like buying from Michael. I have my own dice tray. I just like bought like a picture frame from Michael's and then like painted it with acrylic because I'm like a psychopath. But like the idea is that I've just
you didn't paint it with human blood and body fluids, so
no, not yet. But
Yeah, not
That's
that we
the
know
next
of.
Oh
Caveat.
man.
But the point, the point is that like the truth is that they have a lot of that's a really cool thing about it is that it's a lot easier instead of like with BattleTech it's a little more like what's going on here? What am I getting? What's this person getting this information from? Like there's a little bit more like gregariousness with that, but with Infinity it feels very legit. It feels very really cool, and like I'm not worried that I'm like getting a recast model on eBay of something that I'm not worried about, or like some cool art project that somebody has done and not like communicated with the company. They've done a really good job of giving
they're
that
very communicative with their vendors. They're very upfront with their vendors,
Mhm.
and they are super willing to work with the community on some things, which is also cool as a company. It's nice when you have a fan base that's passionate about it, that some of them can actually make money off of it by partnering up with Corvus and selling these things. And it's cool even when people are passionate about it and want to do stuff and not necessarily have it be profitable for them, seeing a company react positively to that, whereas another company
Tells you to
might
shut down because your
yes
YouTube is
might end up doing
Yeah.
a
your YouTube
CNG.
is going through all that.
Not even that. Just like, I mean, look at these media giants. It's the same sort of thing. Like,
I know, but I think Dan and Dave know exactly what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about
out.
too.
Yeah.
I just don't. I'm not entirely trying to throw all of the shade at the same company all
No,
the
no.
time.
I have
No,
no problem doing it. I
it's
buy their stuff. I get their shit all over. I make almost at least every other week of the podcast is about the stuff they do. So I've no problem throwing shit because I'm still gonna buy more Cruel Boys and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
that's what I was
Boys,
painting earlier today. I was finishing up my Marsh
I can
Carla
I can
Slog
gripe
off.
all I want.
You're
I
good,
can gripe
man.
all I want, but I still have a bajillion custodies.
Yeah,
Oh
So
my gosh.
that's
Are
the
you, and you're
American
getting the
dream
new
right
ones,
there.
right? You're getting the
A
new
good
ones.
point.
yeah, of course I'm getting the new ones. Why does everyone
All
ask? Of
right.
course, and I have the nameplates already printed. All right, listen, if I did 300 nameplates and everyone's like, "Are you gonna get more nameplates?" You're goddamn right, I am. Okay, Christ.
No.
Good on you.
So
Good on
no.
you.
What you need to do next is you need to remove the heads of all your models and start painting those names on the inner collars of the armor.
No. Wait, you don't know what I have? On the bottom of each base is a QR
No.
code, and if you scan it, it brings you to a website that lists the 300 names of each individual.
That's
No, you
fine.
don't.
But to keep it in canon, you need to have it running up the inside of the armor, man.
That's true.
Kenan, if you actually wanted to see it, it's actually pinned in the Reddit.
I do really want to see it. Where's it at?
Oh my, hold on.
That's
It's
awesome.
actually pinned on
Post it
Reddit.
in general.
I'm
Yeah,
definitely
hold
gonna
on.
check
Yeah,
it.
post in the general. I will. So in the interest of not having us run much longer than they usually do, why don't we go to a point? We'll do a little bit of just a quick faction overview. So if someone's interested, the idea of what are these different factions are, even like say 1 minute pitch on them, and then if there's interest either from our end or people listen, and we can always do a deeper dive into this or any of that sort of stuff.
You just
Can we
want us
get a
to do
timer on the clock?
do you want us to do
Can we-
main factions or
Let's
Probably makes sense.
because
start with let's go with
just
main.
just an idea. There's 42
Yeah.
factions, 9 are main, 8 are mercenary, and then 3 to 4 of them are out of print. So
Yeah.
The main factions is probably sufficient, and then
Yeah,
you
I
could
would
say that
say
there's
main.
sectorials that go.
Yeah, because sectorials that requires, I think, a bit of a deeper conversation. Even there, then you get into why might you pick one more than the other. Where I think, at least in my mind, when you pick a faction, they kind of have an overview, and the sectorials maybe kind of pigeon you in a particular way into that. But yeah, we'll just go over just the main ones, just like what they are. So. Actually, Dan's looking stuff up. So, because I'm just looking at it in terms of for their army builder.
Well,
I was just looking at that
all I was
order.
doing was tagging them to the post.
Got it.
So enjoy that.
Because you mentioned, Dan, you wanted to talk about Pano.
Oh,
Yeah,
I believe is what you said.
I just heard him gasp. Oh God.
that's incredible.
This is something to check
That's
out. when you have
incredible. Oh
time.
my god.
Yeah.
The name
Okay,
pitch was a good call. That was a
anyone
good call.
listening to this knows because Dan discussed it at length, and
Oh,
I'll
okay.
make sure I pin the post in the.
Yeah, we'll pin
in
it
the
later.
show.
So I'll start with Pano, and really, Pano is kind of the basic. Okay, I was gonna say the basic bitches, but they're really not. So the Pano big thing is they have great ballistic skill. Their willpower, they forgot how to push buttons, but they have great ballistic skill, and most often than not, their
The only
technology is
button
up
you
to
use is
par.
trigger.
Mhm.
Yeah, pretty much. There's no buttons to push if they're dead. No, but their ballistic skill is great, and they usually have access to some of the more powerful weaponry, more powerful armor, and in Infinity there's something known as BTS, which can shut down hacks on your armor. So they usually have higher BTS. I'll talk about the two subsections that I played, and then Dexter
So
can
we
kick
weren't
in.
doing
Just-
we
Oh, we
weren't
weren't
doing
doing
doing main.
subsections.
Yep,
Oh, okay,
just
so
doing main for now.
okay, so
We
just
can
main.
always
Yeah.
go into that in a future
Oh, yeah.
thing. Just
Oh yeah, so
looking
main
at
is
time.
just higher ballistic skill, and for the most part, higher armor, higher BTS, and much more expensive. There are less people on the field, but they if you're there in cover and you're shooting them, it's hard to get them away from that cover.
Mhm.
But that's piano essentially.
The next one, the army builder puts in order is Yujing. Any
So
takers?
Eugene, if it was the opposite of Pano, um, so where Pano basically spent most of their money on ridiculous tech and all that, Eugene decided we're gonna work on our armor. So in that terms, they have the more cheaper end of heavy infantry. On top of that, they're probably the more all-rounded of all the factions. Like they can
Mhm.
shoot pretty well, decent. They can karate people pretty decent. They can hit buttons pretty well. Also, they have a little something of it.
All right. They list Ariadna next. Any takers?
I mean, I've dabbled. Ulysses, you have something you want to say with that?
No, I wasn't sure. Yeah, I think you should speak to them.
So N4 is a different beast, but traditionally they are camo spam heavy, which means that you're going to have a lot of tokens on the table instead of a lot of models on the table. They are lower armor, lower tech, so you're not going to have a lot of access to the same toys that some of these other factions have. There's a complete lack of mimetism -6, which, if you're a little familiar with the game, is the more advanced form of camouflage. But what they lack in that, they traditionally made up in cheaper point value and stronger physical characteristics. And that's pretty much Ariadna.
I found Ariadna, just to kind of put one little point on that. So,
Mm.
I found Ariadna to be a very strong place to be approaching the game from. They have a lot of tools to them, and because of the way that that camo markers specifically interact, and the way that kind of it scales when you add more than two of them, and that they have many options of what's underneath that camo marker, there's a lot of mind games and ability to kind of play with your opponent and leverage advantage from there. So savvy players usually tend to find Ariadna a good place because they can make the best out of. They're not low tech or like weak in their options.
It's more of a
There's
guerrilla
no
style.
hackers though, which is something I forgot. And
Yeah.
if an Infinity player listened to this and I didn't say that, we would lose all our credit. But they're very
Yeah.
low on the hacker department.
Yeah,
I mean-
don't think like cultists or like gene stealer cults in the sense of like they don't have technology. They do. They just leverage their game advantage from other vectors, and it's actually fairly strong based on the game
Like,
system.
like I said, it's more of like a skirmish style that they play than some of the others.
They list Hakislam next.
Um,
How well do you know Hakislam?
so I can't speak to it with any
Oh,
level of perfect
that's absolutely fine.
knowledge,
Yeah.
but I would say that what I found, there's one player I want to specifically call out. His name is Perzan. He's a commission painter. He's an excellent community leader. So he has shown me kind of how to play that list. They have a lot of pretty good technology. They have a high, what is effectively an intelligence stat in the game, which is relevant for objective pushing. They're very good at getting a lot of objective points in the game, and there's a lot of profiles that are very well costed, in my opinion, and also have a lot of tools. So you'll find a lot of toys to play with Hakislam. You may not be the best gunfighter like on paper, but leveraging cover and a few advantages and picking the right fights, and you'll be a very supreme force on the battlefield with Hakislam.
And a lot of really good medics and doctors.
Yeah. So resilience as well.
Yeah,
I would say.
There's Nomads next.
That one I can take.
Yeah. Thank you. You know that better than me.
They're just the best faction.
Okay, podcast over, guys.
Zooler.
No, so Pano and Nomads are my two, have been my two primary. But Nomads basically, think of the Belters in the Expanse. They're very scrappy. They have a lot of variety. You can pretty much build a list to suit most playstyles. They have very strong hacking. They have some units that are very strong hacking. They have some very strong camo units. They're heavy infantry. They have one or two really top tier heavy infantry, but predominantly what you get is a very flexible playstyle, and I would say they're a beginner friendly faction in the sense that you could buy a bunch of models and kind of pivot into whatever style of gameplay you like, but they're not very beginner friendly because they come with heavy hacking and heavy supplemental rules just because there is so much variety.
Makes sense. Combined is listed next.
Oh man,
Embrace
one of
the
the
monkey.
This is one of two alien factions. To be honest, this is like another one I don't really know much.
So I don't play combined, but my experience is that they are a relatively high technology faction. They have a lot of specialized tools that you can apply and leverage against the opponent's advantage. There's a lot of times where my hacker in combined will be better than your general hacker, and they'll have some other additional bonus or some other interesting element. They're somewhat fragile in terms of when they do take a beating, and but they have a lot of interesting pieces that that are very, very good. I would say that they have access to a lot of profiles. They have access to plasma weaponry and some of these other tools that are just better versions of what other factions can take. They are paying a premium for it, but they have ways to offset that. So it's a cool alien faction. If you want the highest tech faction, this is probably where you want to go. You'll have a lot of different special rules of like mnemonica, and you have like these nano shrouds and stuff like that, which are kind of interesting. And you have some interesting profiles, and then you also have these little like dog robots that throw up on you, and they are very annoying. The time.
I mean, if you want me to add, it's very much like if you're thinking Warhammer or Games Workshop, very much Eldar. They're very finesse. They're very finesse. They have Eldar, like you have fire dragons are better well, not anymore. It's different. But the fire dragons used to be the better melt the space marines. But that's what they did better. That was their job. They played a premium, but they were just the better melt the space, but not anymore. But that's basically that's the best way to look at it.
Yeah. The Howling Banshees versus the Striking Scorpions, how those two units are they solve very, very different problems.
Yes.
You'll find
perfect.
that kind of stuff in Combined Army.
Yes.
But
and
they're really
yeah.
cool. They have like alien
And I mean
stuff.
monkeys. They have fighting monkeys. That's
You're right. The freaking
fighting monkeys. That's literally all you need to know.
All right. Aleph is listening. I don't know. Is there a reason
Where's
they list them
Dexter?
in this order? Because it seems random to me. It's not alphabetical in any way. I'm assuming there's a reason to have this order.
So
But
Dexter, Aleph,
next
go ahead.
virus is Aleph.
Go ahead, Dexter. Go do your Aleph.
Let me do my Aleph,
Yep.
even though I'm not the Aleph player.
Ajax.
Yeah, Ajax. But no, so if combined is the highest, like basically points wise for the aliens, Aleph would be the highest in terms of for the human sphere. For the most part, like everything is expensive. It's the elite army in the game, in a nutshell. And like one of the big points of them is the posthumans that they have, which can basically are like quote unquote one model, but three models, or up to three models, and that could do like a whole bunch of variety of things. It need be.
Agent Smith, comes to mind. How he can
Yeah.
take over
Yeah.
people. It's kind of like that, a little bit more structured, but the post-humans are really
I
interesting.
mean,
And
the Greek
lore-wise,
heroes.
And the Greek
Yeah.
heroes, yeah.
yeah, they also
The
have the
Greek and
Greek.
Indian heroes.
Lore-wise, Combined and Aleph are both technically run by artificial intelligences.
Mm.
So there's a lot of similarities between the two. Combined is a little more flexible than Aleph, but Aleph is another really fun techie faction.
They list Toha next, and aren't they? Are they still around?
They are. They are.
Okay.
You just
They
can't
just
really get the models.
discontinued in
It just
models.
discontinued.
Got it.
Ouch.
Okay.
It's one of the
That hurts.
OOPs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They're fun. Dexter, I don't know if you wanna. You have more experience with Toha than I do.
so basically, the Toha are the second alien race in the
They're
game.
the good aliens.
Yeah, quote unquote.
Exclamation points.
There's like a whole fluff thing on it, but basically, if you want to have like an analogy to it, they're the elves. You know, they're very fragile in what they do, and at the same time, they look like they're from the ground. Like they look like artichokes, which is the biggest meme that there is to them.
Yeah.
Very cool
Yeah.
aesthetic, though. They do
Yeah.
have a cool aesthetic.
I
He's
mean,
not quite selling the aesthetic.
that
Justly.
you know. That's to say for a person, but the big selling point onto them is that when they first came out, they basically did something that I think only Steel Phalanx did, and that was making multiple fire teams, but you can
Yeah.
only have like up to 3, and that's like the big thing with them is that 3 is like a number for them. And another thing about it is that like the other reason behind that is also you can do a kind of like a mix and match almost. So it's not like before back in the day where you had to be just this profile in order to make a fire team. For them it's like, okay, I can have this guy as my button pusher, this guy as my big gun, and then this guy as like probably a backup, and then I can have another fire team doing something similar but like in another, but pivoting to a different part, like, or as like a backup.
Mhm.
So
Toha,
they hit hard, but they will, the second you even hit them once, they're pretty much going to falter over.
Toha
glass
strike me
cannon.
as they strike me as very, very old school Harlequins. I don't know where Harlequins are now in
Oh, yeah, that's true.
GW, but I'm thinking
Yeah.
like 10 years ago when Harlequins were like an online kind of list type thing. I'll be honest, my knowledge of the game is somewhat robust, and like very much whenever I play Toha, I have the rules open and my just the profiles open so I can understand what their options are. They have a lot of vectors which are similar to other factions, but they do something different. So maybe they damage on this stat, or they have this ability to interact in this way. So because the game is so relevant in terms of relationships and decision making, it's very different.
Yeah, and also the other reason why they kind of went they kind of stopped the distribution with them is because Toha doesn't exactly operate in the same way as all the other factions do. Like they have their own set of rules,
Yeah.
and that's what made it like such a big deal to a lot of people in the very beginning when they first came out. Was like I don't know what any of these things do. Like symbiote armor was a thing back then, and then all of a sudden the Pokemon came
Fire
out.
damage.
Yeah, and then
Yep.
and then the Pokemon came out, and then the Pokemon got buffed like just errated like 3 different times. And then
There's
they
been a
added
lot
in,
of evolution with them.
yeah, and then like Ferroware came out, which is supposed to be like another version of hacking, and now you got to know that. And it just became so much. It became
They're an
so gross,
extra.
right?
They're a little extra, but
Yeah.
they're a lot of fun to play. They're I think one of the most fun.
Yeah, like this would probably be the White Dwarf of
Yes.
the whole entire line, in my opinion.
Yes. And run
I can speak
Janstar.
on I can speak on the NA2 if you would
Yeah.
like.
That's the next one they have up
Yeah.
is the NA2.
Awesome. So NA2 is is the mercenary faction. It's kind of a catch-all. So in Infinity, there's a lot of different sectorials. It actually doesn't have a vanilla version of it, so you are choosing from a limited list. They're curated with their own different elements. to speak of NA2 in general, you're going to want to, most of your profiles are nothing particularly special. Their basic unit called the Brawlers is pretty much like an average unit all around. And you'll find that most of your games involve and strategies for these general factions is something interesting gimmick or cool or interesting, and then a lot of just kind of average profiles that you have to leverage based on your knowledge of the game. There's some cool stuff. Ikari is like space pirates. Japanese Successionist Army is very well its own kind of individual identity. Spyro Corps is like the mercenary Toha. There's a lot of different options here. It's the all sectorial list, but basically you're playing a mercenary faction with a lot more flavor and a very specific bent. So while you'll also find yourself limited because you can't easily jump between these different sectorials. So you're usually going to pick one of them and treat it as like your army. That's what I do with Druze. So kind of going into it, you can kind of mix and match between it once you kind of develop a collection. But I would say NA2 most of the time, you're going to have your gimmick. If you're foreign art company, your bolts. If you're Deshot, you have some interesting choices in terms of like the tools you have, but it is this, again, very generic mercenary company idea. So I would say like NA2 is you won't find anything that's like specific or killer profiles like in the combined army or LF or Toha, where you have like some kind of a technology advantage or superiority. And they are all fire teams. So you have to be aware that you will need to learn how to play using fire teams and be good at that to be good at NA2 armies.
So
I would.
some of the like the good things about it is that like I think like Starco, White Company, and you can actually take like the 2-player boxes that are there and pretty much use that because that's where basically the mishmash is between all these. Some of these are like it's
Underscore that. That's
two,
very, very important.
it's
Yeah, that's
like
a
at least
great
2 to 3 different factions put together, and you can just go with that and you'll be fine.
And I would just add that it's a lot easier to come into NA2s if you already have a vanilla faction.
Mhm.
Like if you're a Pano main, if you're a Nomad main, um, if you're a Yujing main, it's a lot
You mean
Like the
old
easier.
slum.
Eugene Main?
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Old Eugene Main.
if you're an old school JSA player from when you were a Yujing player, cough. But it's basically like if you want to go out and get ramen, but you also want to get a pitcher of margaritas, you'd go to the NA2 list. Like,
NA2 lists are usually somebody's second army. Almost a lot of people, if they're once they've explored a faction, rather than go into another faction, they'll start messing around in the NA2 sphere.
because it's just
That's
two collisions of different armies a
Mm.
lot of
Mhm.
times, vastly different armies together in one.
And the last one they list is O12.
So O12 is probably the equivalent of the UN in,
Mhm.
in like probably like what is it now 175 years into the future as it's called now.
But with actual power.
Yeah, but with actual
Yeah.
power. They are basically the ones that created the Aleph and gave them the weapons also. So basically they're like the cops in the best way to put it. So like every model has a specific task, and they do like an amazing job to it. Like you have like the Crusher, like his whole job is to jump in and then forward observe stuff, and at the same time he can still do other things like shotgun things along the way. You have
Nice mix of heavy infantry.
yeah,
Very
pretty much.
heavy
Like,
infantry.
they're very all rounded,
Yeah.
and very all rounded.
in a very good way. In a
Yeah.
very good way. You'll find a tool to do what you need again without feeling like you're special. Like Hak Islam and Yu Ching have like very well-rounded lists as a whole. But I find that O12 it is the newest faction, so it's still kind of trying to find its identity within this larger game. But I find that they shoot well, they do interesting things well, they have cool, unique profiles well, and also they're kind of supported pretty well in terms of the new profiles and
And the aesthetic's beautiful.
models.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Space Cops, it's cool stuff. They still have a little bit more to flesh out, but O12 are not a bad place to enter into the game.
Yeah, it's probably like one of the better factions to go into if you're starting off. Besides, like
not too
probably
many. Yeah,
you know,
agreed. Not too many surprises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think that at least gives people a sort of broad overview, and of course, yeah, there's a lot of finer strokes in there and all, but at least this gives some people something to look at. So I think we'll call it there. There's I'm sure plenty more we could say, and I have no problem having people on again to say the plenty more they probably have. But hopefully at least this gives people, some sort of starting point. If you're a person who knows anything of the game, might not have told you anything you didn't know. But if you're someone who's maybe looking for a different game, hey, holidays are coming up. Maybe your Christmas list is looking a little light and you want something else to get involved in, then maybe we're giving you something good there. As always,
Black Friday deals.
Hmm?
Lot of Black Friday deals coming up.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Anyone in particular that we want to mention, and I'll put it in the episode note when I release it. So episodes, as people know, release on Fridays. We'll have it in there, timed for Black Friday. But I know Warsenal is doing what 30% off.
Yeah, 30%.
I think it's Black Friday. It's like 3 or 4 days starting Black Friday.
I think so.
They go to Cyber Monday.
Yeah, they're going to Cyber Monday.
Okay.
26.
Corvus does like a week-long sales,
Mhm.
I believe. I'm not sure about this year.
Yeah, I'm not sure about MicroArts if they're doing anything.
I know Foreground, who I mentioned before, is doing 25% off the terrain.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Like I said, since it gives me a few days before this releases, I'll see if I can get, there's probably other spots with good lists of this, but I'll see if I can put a few of them in there that maybe tailor themselves a little bit more towards this game. But yeah, especially at this season, it's a good time to keep an eye out for things because people do start running sales.
Yeah.
Or some do sales, or some like for Malvo and stuff like that, what they always did, they never did sales, but they did, hey, there's certain things you can get now, or when you buy a certain amount, you get extra stuff. So some companies do it that way, but there's some good options out there.
The Jiguan district, if you like Cyberpunk, is like everything you want it to be. You can totally see Decker in all that terrain, so it'll be good.
Very cool.
And Blade Runner is what I'm talking about.
As always, I want to thank everyone. Roughly 2 months. Took a little bit to get going. But we're actually starting to hit some good more asking questions, anything like that. Easiest way is through email. It's trainkickersnj@gmail.com. Also, I mean, our Dan and I's both our information is posted. You can always reach out to us otherwise. For next week, I'm not entirely sure what we're at, so we'll see exactly what it is that we do then. And we will see you next time.